It's May 27th, 2019. This is Owen Sound City Council. Council met in a closed session at 6:30. We reviewed the following closed session minutes. Regular council meeting held on April 29th, 2019. Tom Thompson Art Gallery Advisory Committee meeting minutes held on May 6th, 2019. Owen Sound Municipal Nonprofit Housing Corporation minutes held on April 16th, 2019. Council reviewed one matter regarding a proposed or pending acquisition of land by the municipality respecting a sewage lift station, and direction was provided to staff. And Council reviewed one matter regarding matters about an identifiable individual, including municipal or local board employees respecting a public appointment to the Owen Sound Municipal Nonprofit Housing Corporation and Owen Sound Housing Company, and directions were provided to staff. At number 4 already, calling for additional business. Staff, any additional business? Seeing none. Council. Councillor Koepke.
Thank you, Your Worship. I have a few items tonight. One regarding Community Waterfront Heritage Centre, one regarding the Seniors Fair, one about the police conference, and one about community safety and well-being.
Good, thank you. Deputy Mayor O'Leary.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'll be talking about an opioid presentation.
Thank you. Going this way. Councillor Gregg.
Thank you, Mayor Boy. I'll be speaking about the upcoming 75th anniversary of the invasion of Normandy and a reception at the Billy Bishop Museum.
You're covering that? Good. Now I have a few updates and one less now, which is perfect. Disclosure of pecuniary interest and the general nature thereof. Deputy Mayor O'Leary.
Thank you, Your Worship. I have an interest in report CS-19-066 on the basis that I am a shareholder in Mudtown Station, which is a vendor and an abutting neighbor to the festival, being the subject of the report.
Thank you. Anyone else? Seeing none. We're at number 6, confirmation of council minutes of regular council meeting held on May 13th, 2019. Go ahead.
Thank you, Your Worship. Moved by myself, seconded by Deputy Mayor O'Leary, that the minutes on the regular council meeting held on May 13th, 2019, as printed, be adopted.
All in favor? That is carried. 6B.
Thank you, Your Worship. Moved by myself, seconded by Deputy Mayor O'Leary, that the minutes of the closed session of the regular council meeting held on April 29th, 2019, as printed, be adopted.
And all in favor? That is carried. Thanks.
Thank you, Your Worship. Moved by myself, seconded by Deputy Mayor O'Leary, that the City Council now move into Committee of the Whole to consider public meetings, deputations and presentations, public question period, matters arising from correspondence, reports of City staff, consent agenda, committee minutes, matters postponed, motions for which notice was previously given, and additional business.
Good. Thank you. All in favor? That is carried. So we're now in Committee of the Whole. We have no public meetings, but we have a full slate of deputations and presentations. And we're starting with 9A, Jan Chamberlain from the Active Lifestyle Center, Grey Bruce, on 10th anniversary already. Welcome. It's Judy Chalmers.
There are two of us.
Welcome.
Mayor Body and councillors, I'm Judy Chalmers, and Jan Chamberlain and I are here as members of the board of the Active Lifestyle Center, Grey Bruce. And we're here to tell you about some of the exciting events that will be happening at the center over the next few months. The center's, first of all, the center is celebrating its 10th anniversary this year, which is a big occasion for us. Jan will be telling you a bit about that celebration in a few minutes, but first I wanted to give you some background on the center. I know some of you have attended activities and events at the center, and you're quite familiar with what goes on there. But for those of you who aren't, the Active Lifestyle Center provides programs and activities that support healthy lifestyles and independence of adults 55 years of age and older. The Gentle Fit exercise programs and programs like pickleball, shuffleboard encourage physical activity, while bridge, pepper, various arts and crafts programs keep our minds active. And of course, the socialization while participating is an important component of all the programs. In addition to the regularly scheduled programs, the center also hosts bus trips, organizes information sessions, and sponsors workshops. It's a busy place. No matter what your area of interest, we have a program or activity for you, and if we don't have something that meets your interest, let us know, and we'll do our best to develop one. The center is located in the former McQuay Tannery building, for those of you who aren't familiar with it, beside the Bay Shore. The City of Owen Sound provides the building at no cost and looks after the outside maintenance, and we sincerely thank the city for that. The city also provides the center with space at the Bay Shore. We have 3 half-days a week during the week for bridge, shuffleboard, and billiards, as well as Sunday afternoons for Pepper. The Pepper has outgrown the McQuay Tannery building facility. Although programs are led by volunteers, there are costs associated with providing the programs, as well as the operating expenses involved in keeping the center open. Utilities, phone and internet, office supplies, etc. And these costs are covered by membership and activity fees, fundraising events, grants, and donations. And the center is now a registered charity. We became that about a year ago now. You don't have to be a member to participate in the programs and activities, and you don't have to be a senior. Memberships renewed each April 1st, and this year to date, we have 277 members, including both renewing members and new members, and the number grows every day. There are people in either renewing or taking out new memberships. The slide here is just a sample of our monthly activities, and you can see that it's pretty full. The highlighted yellow are activities that take place at the Bay Shore. We had to move our pickleball to Calvary Church. I couldn't remember which one. To Calvary Church. We didn't have another facility for that. And then the ones in black actually take place at the center. In the handouts we've left with you is a copy of the schedule for June, so you can have a closer look at what we do. And now I'm turning it over to Jan, and she'll carry on.
Well, this is a real pleasure to be here, and the building is wonderful. Welcome, everyone. And there's been a lot of people in this room that's helped us over these 10 years to make this a very special place for seniors in this community. Not just seniors, we're all active people now. We call it Active Lifestyle Center. In fact, all the senior centers in Ontario have adopted that name based on nobody wants to be a senior, but we like to stay active. So I'm here to make sure you know that we are celebrating the 10 years of, one of the things is a big thank you to the city for that. And that is on June the 27th. There's a very special thing happening. The Minister of Senior Affairs and Accessibility, Minister Raymond Cho, I think you say it, Cho is actually speaking at it. And it's a morning event, and it goes right into lunch. And if you are able to come, or anyone's welcome, but we would like to know our numbers, so we need to phone the center, and Corey will get the reservations organized. And it's for all our members, it's free, but for non-members, it's $10. So that was my first thing. The second thing I want to tell you about is that I've been involved with what we call our Council on Aging that got started at the last Senior Summit that we did 5 years ago. And some of the councillors here would have been at that. And it was a day to recognize what was needed for seniors in the whole of Grey and Bruce, and we decided to start a Council on Aging. There are several councils on aging right across Canada, but lots in Ontario, but there was no rural ones. So we have a rural one, and it's a model that we wanted to work with the whole 17 municipalities for each of them to have their own senior advisory committee, and at their senior advisory committees, they would send one rep to the Council on Aging. So we did a presentation to the Accessibility Committee here in Owen Sound, and from that, we told them who we wanted a rep. But I spoke to Mr. Boddy, Mayor Boddy, and he said, well, aren't you already it? So we have 4 people on our advisory committee for Owen Sound, right at the senior center, and it's Judy and myself, Roz Brooks, and Sharon McKechnie. And Sharon would have been here this evening, but she's recovering. So we well represent the seniors through the work that we're doing. So it's time now to do another summit. And this time it's going to be coordinated by the center and by the Council on Aging. So we have a save the date piece in here, and you've got it on that one for us. We're very fortunate that we've had some sponsors come forward to represent. Our keynote address is going to be done by Dr. Brian Goldman. And you know, it's really an interesting piece because he has a new book out called The Art of Compassion or Kindness. And basically, it's about all the people becoming good neighbors again. And one of the presentations, it is seniors have a home, and they usually have friends, but a lot of them don't have a job. And their job now is looking after their neighbors. And this summit is going to really focus on the friendliness of what we have and highlight some of the wonderful stories that have happened in each of the municipalities around becoming age-friendly. So the ask we have is we would like to have it at the Bayshore again. When I came in to talk to my friend, the city manager, he said, well, you better come to council about that. So here we are. We would like to hold it on September 24th would be the evening, and we'd do a supper at the Bayshore and the evening event, and all day Wednesday, the September 25. So I've spoken to Mr. O'Leary, not Brian, but I think it might be another Mr. O'Leary, who has it penciled in. But that's what our ask is if we could have that space and credit you as our sponsors of our summit for providing the free space at the Bayshore. And is there any questions?
Thank you very much for your presentation. I saw my picture there, so people certainly know I
Yes,
join
yes.
and belong to the center and certainly enjoy the activities that you provide. I know the calendar's quite full, but I do see the odd time that you do rent out your facility if it's available to people, so you might want to
count
make
it.
sure people know that.
And it's actually a very reasonable price, and a lot of people have held baby showers and things like that there, and we really don't have a lot of space, but mostly Sundays and Saturdays we've been able to rent it, and that was how we started doing income at the very beginning.
Well, you seem to do very well on the bit of fundraising that you do, so
Yeah, we just had a yard sale.
congratulations on that.
Yeah, thanks, Mary.
Yeah. So, Jan, how many members?
277
Go.
at
277.
last count.
And the building's right beside the Bayshore. It's on the bus route, so easy to get to. How much does it cost to join?
It's $15, and I just need to tell you, and we also have some group members. For instance, all the ball people are group members because they were part of the starting of it 10 years ago. And there's other group members, like the bridge clubs would be a group member, so they aren't counted in that 275 that we just noticed. So really, I would say we would have nearly 1,000 members if you counted each of those people in those groups that are in our group memberships
$15
per year.
per year.
1 year.
That's the best buy in the city.
It's a very good buy.
Yeah, so if there's anyone out watching on Rogers and looking for some of those activities, like, there's something just about every day in June,
There is something in June. It's a big month.
I think.
And we're very proud of our bus trips
In
as
fact,
well.
other than Saturdays, there's something pretty well every day to do down there, which is pretty amazing for $15 a year. Mr. Ritchie, Ms. Coulter, do we need a report back on those dates? How's that work?
Through you, Your Worship, I'm just looking quickly at what the hall rental fee would be for Thursday and Friday, but the city has a policy regarding waiving of rental fees. It is delegated to the Director of Community Services and the Director of Corporate Services, and the policy does ask for a budget pre-event and post-event. So the idea is that if you are raising funds and 100% of the money you're raising is going back into paying for your programs there at the center. So perhaps we could talk with the group on their proposal. We could fill out the proper paperwork. If it doesn't meet the intent of the policy, we could bring a request forward to council.
There we go. Okay, so procedure to be followed and nothing to be decided tonight then. Good.
Just the ask. Thank you.
Perfect.
All right, thank you.
That's great. Oh, Councillor Tammy.
Just kudos for you for snagging Dr. Brian Goldman. I think that'll be a great, great talk, and $50 is a cheap date.
And he's
so,
staying overnight,
yeah.
so he'll be there for the next day, too, when it's only $15 for the day.
No, way to go, Jan.
It's really good.
Good, thank you very much. So next deputation presentation is from our Mr. Teakle, Junior Planner, with regard to Doors Open.
Good evening, Your Worship and Council. So, got the slides up there. Do you have those, or let's go back? Oh. There we go. So this year is Owen Sound's 17th annual Doors Open event. Doors Open events are held by municipalities across the province from April through October every year in partnership with the Ontario Heritage Trust. And the purpose of the event is to showcase sites of historic, cultural, architectural, and environmental interest to the public free of charge. The date for the Owen Sound event this year is Saturday, June 1st, with individual site times varying, and a full site hours are available online and in the recently published newspaper Spadia that went out this past Saturday. There's a theme every year set by the Ontario Heritage Trust, and this year that theme is communication, which they explain is examining how verbal and written language and the preservation of language, technological innovation, communication systems, and cross-cultural exchange have all influenced Ontario's cultural heritage. With that theme in mind, we pursued sites for this year that fit the theme, while also including some returning favorites. So in total, we have 21 participating sites for 2019, and a total list of the sites are available on your screen. So there are 9 new sites, or sites that have not been on in a number of years, which include 92.3 The Dock, the Grey County Administration Building, the Ginger Press, the former U.S. Consulate House, the Owen Sound Artists Co-op, the Owen Sound Police Service Station, the Owen Sound Wastewater Treatment Plant, Rogers TV Studio, and the Artists Co-op Workshop. And some returning favorites include Moreland Place, the Eddie Sargent House, Highland Manor Inn, and the Roxy Theatre. City Hall is also a site this year, and we could still use some city staff or council members who would like to volunteer to give tours from 10 to 1 or 1 to 4. So if you're interested in that, please contact Stacey Allerton and Pam. So progress to date, sites have been selected and confirmed. The Ontario Heritage Trust website has been updated, and our event is listed in the Doors Open Ontario brochure, which is distributed across the province and beyond. The city's Doors Open website has been updated and has an interactive story map application showing all of the site locations, times, and a bit of information about each individual site. A wraparound cover, or Spadia, as I mentioned, including a list of sites, maps, sponsors, and a list of city events was published in the Sun-Times newspaper on May 25th, and it looks like that. And a media release went out earlier today, and we'll be posting on the city's tourism and social media through the coming week as we lead up to the event on Saturday. We have 4 sponsors this year, including Barry's Construction, MHBC Planning, Sprucedale Egremart, and GM Demert Architect Incorporated. And I'd like to thank our sponsors for their support of Doors Open. And reference sheets and other materials are completed and being distributed to the sites. We're bringing back the photo contest again this year, which has been popular over the past couple of years. So that entails posting a photo at one of the sites using the hashtag DoorsOpenOS, or alternatively emailing it to heritage@owensound.ca using the hashtag in the subject line. Randomly selected winners will receive a prize, and some of the prizes include gift certificates to the Artists Co-op Workshop, Harrison Park Inn, Harrison Park Putt and Paddle, Mudtown Station, Owen Sound Attack tickets, and Roxy Theatre tickets. And I'd like to thank those organizations for their generous donations. The benefit of this type of contest, as opposed to a paper ballot contest, of course, is that the social media posts help to promote the event throughout the day as well. And so more information about Doors Open Owen Sound can be found at owensoundtourism.ca/doorsopen or doorsopenontario.on.ca/Owen Sound, and I'd be pleased to answer any questions.
Questions? June 1st is a Saturday?
Correct.
Just
Yes.
the one day?
Just the one day this year.
And these events you said happen all over. I think I just saw where somebody was getting onto the new flight service from Wyerton down to Toronto to go to the Open Doors in Toronto this past weekend. Hopefully people will get onto the flight service and come back up and attend ours. So you need more volunteers,
We do.
and so they can go through the owensoundtourism.ca Doors Open website to get to you,
Yep, the information contacts are there as well. Yeah.
to volunteer. Good. Anyone else? Perfect. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So 9C, Chief Ambrose is here to present on the Owen Sound Police Services review. Get you to push the little, that button. There we go. Now we can hear you. Go ahead.
Good evening,
Welcome.
Your Worship and council members. Thanks for the opportunity to come in and speak to you and address you tonight. I also want to point out and appreciate the fact that the Police Services Board members, both the members of council and the public appointees and the provincial appointees are here as well because of this important nature of this topic. So I'd like to start through a presentation on the review. I will qualify it that some of the areas had already changed and taken a different format by the time I even arrived in my seat back in January. So some of the things have taken place, a number of the things are going to be taking place, and as we go through you'll see that. So back in June of 2018, the service reviews provided to the Owen Sound Police Services Board. Capture and identify immediate opportunities to increase efficiencies while maintaining or improving effectiveness, as well as providing recommendations for future considerations of the service, its members, and the community it serves as they evolve over the next 10 years. I think it's important to acknowledge that the nature of the work of the members, and this is the report from Mr. Levac, of the service are intricately intertwined to a point where it is difficult, if not impossible, to identify a single change in one area of the service that would not have implications in at least one other area. Therefore, while the report focuses on the following list of headings, the discussions of each opportunity includes the necessary identification of ancillary issues, opportunities, and other areas of the service. And I can tell you since arriving that that is quite, in fact, a thing. Many people wear many hats, and I'm very impressed with the way they managed to get the job done in the service. I think it's also important to point out that the consultant advised that the police service is an efficiently managed organization that provides adequate and effective policing in the city of Owen Sound despite the two primary challenges it faces. One is that Owen Sound serves as a regional commercial and social hub which draws non-residents to the city, masking the actual population being policed, and the high number of complexity of mental health related calls for service, and certainly that will come up as we go through the presentation. It's broken down into recommendations relating to each of the following. I won't go through them all, but there are 16 different areas that the report addressed, and I'll go through each as we go along. So there were 22 primary recommendations that were made by the consultant, and an estimated savings of about $225,000. Some of those recommendations were difficult to implement because they conflicted with each other. Therefore, not all the recommendations can be implemented, which means the total reported savings can't be achieved at this time. There are a number of items that need to be bargained into a collective agreement as part of negotiations. There are some operational challenges that in totality, if implemented, could decrease efficiency and or increase costs or violate license agreements. Some of those would be like closing the storefront hours overnight because we have a 24-hour service and we have to have people on staff there 24 hours a day to meet our mandate through CPEC, the Canadian Police Information Computer System, and for the dispatch contracts that we host for other agencies, as well as ourselves. They were based on work areas or positions that, as I mentioned earlier, have been restructured prior to my arrival, and those efficiencies have already been implemented and identified. Certain desk positions and part-time officers and a standalone property officer have been implemented. The review does recommendations that would add expenses to the police budget. However, they're not captured in there. They indicate savings, but his indication was that he was supposed to find savings, and when he was conducting his review, he wasn't supposed to find areas where it was going to cost more money. I'm not quite sure how that happens. If you implement a position or you include some other responsibilities to a management type situation, pay equity under the legislation would obviously increase a wage, but that's not mentioned in the report. The Owen Sound service has been and remains committed to providing service excellence while at the same time looking for efficiencies, and most of the efficiencies were implemented. Go to the next slide. So of the 22 primary recommendations, 17 have already been addressed. 11 of those are completed. 3 of the recommendations have been in place for a number of years, and I'm not sure that there was a complete understanding of the way that we do that. Items like training during briefing, Crown Brief approvals for quality control were mentioned, and that's something that's been in place by the sergeants supervising the shift for years. And joint training with other police services, that's an area that we can certainly expand, but that's already ongoing. 3 recommendations are in the process of being completed, and as we go through those, we'll discuss them, but that would include civilianization of some positions to lower the costs, and implementing teams for mental health related calls so that we can more effectively deal with those situations. And of course, the direction from council about regionalization and discussions about amalgamation or cost sharing, however you want to describe that. 5 of the remaining recommendations, one requires an amendment to the Police Services Act, and that has to do with other than police officers conducting traffic patrol. One's prohibited through our CPIC licenses. As I mentioned, we have to have somebody on service all the time, 24 hours a day, so they can make entries. One would result in a loss of revenue, eliminating the bylaw position or putting it back to the city. And one would be an increase in staffing, hiring an EA for the board only. And one raises some concerns about operational and cost impacts to the service. So the first recommendation dealt with management structure. You can read it recommends recruiting for a deputy chief of police for the upcoming vacancy for the chief. Obviously that was, I think we can skip that one over because it's already been implemented, and I was hired beginning in January 2019. And we're also, the second portion of that management structure, one was about going and speaking to other areas. That would be the ideal situation and probably the most likely area where you would see significant cost savings. The patrol platoons, there was a suggestion to use special constables versus officers to deliver summonses and to verbally give trespass notices. There are a couple of issues with that. They're not that time consuming. The officers are already on the road, and it would cost money to bring somebody in to do that work. The way it's done now, there's no increased cost. Trespass notices are often issued at the time of the offense. If they're given verbally, if they were required to come to court, if there was a subsequent charge laid, an officer would have to attend court for evidentiary purposes, whereas you can use documentary evidence at this point. Completing the activity report at the end of their shift really takes about 5 minutes at the end of the day. So you can see the efficiencies that they've identified. They've attributed 0 value to these efficiencies, and it's undetermined when we reviewed it as to what the cost would be to have a special constable come in to serve those subpoenas. The work schedules in the patrol platoons, there's some consideration about creating a change in the minimum complement for parts of shifts when calls for service are minimal. There was some discussion about that. Certainly that would have to be something that would have to be discussed during the collective agreement discussions with the association, as staffing levels and shift schedules are embedded in the collective agreement. So that's something for bargaining. And it's a $7,500 saving for what they're suggesting, and it would only be at certain hours during the evening, but that would be one option. Work schedule for dispatch. There was a suggestion about part-time dispatchers be prepared 3 months in advance. This has all been implemented already. There's a 3-month in advance schedule that goes out. That was implemented a year ago, June. And defining the number of extra shifts that could be declined would need to be negotiated by the collective bargaining agreement as well. So, data entry work schedule. It's recommended the schedule of the full-time data clerks be compressed to 20 hours a day with no coverage between 2 a.m. and 6 a.m. But they're still maintaining that they work on a 12-hour shift, so there's really no cost with the savings associated to that. One of the issues with that, as I mentioned, is we have to, for both our own purposes and for the contracts that we carry, have 24/7 monitoring and coverage for the CPIC terminals. So there really is no storefront savings hours if somebody's going to be there anyhow. There are costs associated if you were to bring in further coverage from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. to cover the busy hours. So the EDC has no value. We see that there would be some expense to doing that. The court's work schedule, it's for part-time constables, the same thing, 3 months in advance. That's already been implemented. And They are assigned a performance expectation that defines the number of extra shifts. Again, this is something that would have to be negotiated in any collective bargaining agreement because it's not in place at this present time. CIB and drugs and CISO. For those that aren't familiar, that's the Criminal Intelligence Service of Ontario, and it's a position that we cover off by one of our officers. He recommends that, he makes some recommendations. The drug officer be merged with CIB if there's no plans to fill the second position. Right now, we're short-staffed. There would be a plan to replace that officer and in the future to go back to what it was. And he also suggested that there be 4 detectives who would be assigned specialty areas and then have a backup for each one. Really, I've examined that. There's some issues with doing that because the changes for detectives and investigations are constant and ongoing as the case law evolves. So to have somebody trained, they're still going to have ongoing training costs, and it's not really going to reflect any real savings. And he's suggesting there might be a $2,500 savings for training. The other thing that he suggested was to have a long-term member in CIB up to a permanent appointment. And certainly that would have some implications for morale, as there wouldn't be any opportunities for advancement, and you could actually end up costing yourself money by having officers move to other services where there are options of advancement and career enhancement. There are recommendations relating to special constables, and it's recommended the community service officer position be converted from a uniform constable to a special constable position. He attributes a $45,000 savings to this spot, and that would be the difference between a first-class constable's wage and a special constable's wage as a saving. We'll see later on that there's a suggestion that that position be reappointed to deal with the mental health situation in the city, and there's no cost associated with that later down in the presentation. However, obviously, we felt that there'd be a $75,000 expense because the officer would be redeployed to another location, and we'd still have a special constable doing this, a new special constable doing the community service officer role. So there's some issues with that, although it's a good idea, and we are moving forward to reduce costs in the community services officer program, and we will be looking at implementing a civilianization of that position. The court case manager, they suggest should be described as a manager of people and given oversight. There's no attributable cost to doing that, and it is one thing that I did identify and address during my first few months in the position, that the supervision of the courthouse was an issue, and it has increased, and there's no additional cost to make that increase. We've redeployed the civilian director, and working out of the courts more often to address those issues of having no supervision within the building. He's suggesting that the training units, the patrol sergeants, be utilized to augment the training branch, and they can have their own areas of expertise. Certainly as it stands now with all the legislative changes and the number of changes in regard to training and the annual use of force training, it's not a simple position. The sergeants would need to be trained, and there would be a cost associated with training those sergeants and keeping them trained and up to date. So there's some savings he's indicating by doing that. The bigger portion of this would be to have joint training along with other services, and that's already ongoing, and will be expanded in the future. There's already been some discussions that I've had with other services about expanding that next year. He touches on technology, and he identifies that our IT department should be probably they're at the max for the 2 members that are currently in that position, and should we take on any other work, a 3rd member would likely be required, and then to implement a after-hours help desk. Currently, we've done we're doing some consulting work and through IT, and we've hired a 3rd-party contractor to help assist with that, which will offset the costs and generate some revenue, and we're not looking at this present time to expand that. Just talk about data entry, and it's recommended the part-time constables removed from the desk duty and be assigned to augment the platoons. This was done long before my arrival, so I can't really comment on that. But it was determined that it would improve service and efficiency, and it certainly has done that. It recommends filling the front desk void caused by the redeployment of the part-time officers with the data clerks and the saving of $20,000 is achieved. However, this part-time wages will still be used in their new role out on the road. So as of July 2018, those officers were redeployed, and there's no need to backfill the front desk positions, so there's no additional costs for us to do that. Data entry. It's recommended that the storefront hours for non-emergency transactions be limited from 8 a.m. to 7 p.m. Monday through Friday. As I've already said a couple times, the people are there working regardless, and it's just as easy to leave the doors open or to have them respond and open the door if there is a reason to have somebody at the storefront hours. So there wouldn't be any savings for that. Although it's indicated that there may be a $30,000 savings, there wouldn't be the appropriate coverage for our CPIC office license. Data entry. He makes recommendations to that the officers type their own reports and reduce the typing done by the data entry clerks, and include a quality control step. The officers have the ability to type and enter their own reports, and the Crown Briefs has always had a quality control aspect to them by the supervisor and sergeant signing off on them. I personally don't understand the purpose of having an officer who's not really proficient at typing being paid a higher wage to do some data entry work. And it's one of the things that, from my past experience, we've gone away from. And to have the right people doing the right job at the right time is probably the best thing. The other thing, since this report, the Crown's office is now going to electronic disclosure, so everything's going to have to be done electronically. There's very little that can be done without using the computer and the data entry, including all the release documents starting next week, so there won't be that much that can't be done electronically. He did note that in the communications center, there's a level of unnecessary radio activity, and it certainly increases the work for the dispatchers. I'm happy to say that just prior to my arrival, they implemented an iMobile dispatch system, and along with some of our other partners that we dispatch for, the computer terminals in the car now allow for us to do all the clearing of calls, self-dispatching and everything without the dispatchers having to become involved or have to radio transmit if necessary. So it keeps the chatter to a minimum and it frees up some of their time. There was a recommendation made about the property, and that this be as a clerical position. There's no identifiable need for this position to be a special constable. This duty can become part of the data entry clerks with increased hours of service and readily available backup. So this was already implemented before my arrival. There was a member who is now the forensic identification officer and the property officer, and they look after both of those. One of the issues with having 4 people in charge of a property vault is one person is responsible when the audit time comes around. So it's very difficult to make it possible for 4 people to work and be responsible for all the possessions within the police service. And as I said, this has already been implemented, and it's been quite successful. It was implemented last year. There was a recommendation surrounding the executive assistant to the board, who is also a member of the association and poses the appearance of potential conflict of interest. This recommendation is to hire a part-time EA for the Police Services Board. He attributes no service review value to that, but certainly if you're hiring somebody part-time, I think you're going to have an associated cost to that. Mental health calls for service, certainly that's one of the biggest areas that we have seen an increase of over the last couple of years, and police services aren't necessarily the best capable or best to handle those situations. It's not the best for the client, it's not the best results, and so he is suggesting that they go to a program similar to other services where they have community involvement with mental health providers. That's something that we are actually working on right now and should be implemented fairly soon in order to do that. He also made suggestions that Owen Sound participate in situation tables, community well-being planning situation tables. That's something that was already in place long prior to his arrival, and has been ongoing and still is ongoing. And the report acknowledges that working to strategically address mental health-related calls could have a significant impact on increasing efficiencies and decreasing costs in the future. I just wanted to point out that in 2018, there was roughly a 30% increase in mental health-related calls for service, And already, as far as end of April 2019, there's a 31% increase in calls related to mental health. So that would be a large increase for our service. The bylaw officer is a position that he made a recommendation that it come back to the city, and that the city could take on that role. One of the issues that it has is that the bylaw position generates about $125,000 in revenue when it's offsetting by the wages and benefits of the bylaw employee and the revenue that they generate. So the profit is about $50,000 that would be lost if we were to move that back to the city. And the requirements of the revenue contract with third-party background checks requires that we have 15-minute response, and it's also necessary to have a full-time employee assigned to this position, so eliminating the position will be the decrease in revenue. So it's not that appropriate a recommendation, in my opinion. And we've actually, in 2019, we're actually expanding that revenue. Commercial activities. He mentions that given the risks associated with commercial activities, recommended this profit model be maintained and improved through expansion. It's further recommended that the errors and omissions in general liability insurance policies be reviewed and updated where necessary. Just so everybody is aware, we have gone out and looked for further revenue sources. We've brought in some third-party record checks revenue. IT, we're also expanding and doing some of that to increase our revenue. Dispatch, we've lost a couple of contracts for service with some amalgamations and takeovers by the LPP, and one service that left and is going to a neighboring service for backup and sort of regionalization type of purposes. However, Next Generation 911 will be coming in next year, at the end of next year, and we're getting on the front cutting edge of that, requiring the necessary technology. We're becoming one of the test pilots. We're actually one of the only test pilots outside of the GTA in Next Gen 911, so that we can be prepared and ready when the other agencies get to the point where they realize there's a significant investment in infrastructure. There's an expectation that many will try and change and go into contract positions for dispatch and close up their own dispatch services. So we want to be in a position where we can capitalize on that and pick up business. He recommends succession planning. Certainly, we are doing that. I've had discussions with the board about succession planning, and with the departure of Inspector Daze, we'll be looking at hiring a new individual and hopefully some succession planning around that position. When you look at the overall recommendations of the 22, just as an overview, 17 of them have been implemented or are in progress. The other 5, as I've gone through, legislative approval, license requirements for CPIC, operational and cost concerns resulted in the loss of revenue or increase in costs. So of the 17 of them have been implemented. And I think there were some good ideas and good implementation, good parts to implement from this plan. And the ones that can't be either will be revisited in the future or determined how else to proceed otherwise. So when you look at the whole thing, there's a total indicated savings of about $131,000. When you look at some of the things that I have concerns with, coming in afterwards and looking at this on my own eyes, different lens, there's probably a increase of about $122,000, and that's the way it falls out from the report. So efficiencies were found and realized. There were savings that were implemented. I think it's important to recognize too that the one thing that the Police Services Board at the request was requested was the report included a special note addressing the services and the costs of those services provided by the Owen Sound Police Services that were not included in the OPP proposal in the fall of 2017. Those included, as you'll see, the community programs, bylaw, storefront hours, accident reporting center, and the service level, group benefit cost sharing that benefits the city, and that's a total of $325,000. So those are some of the areas where we are increasing our service, and there's a cost that you wouldn't see reflected in any OPP costing. So I have opened any questions.
Okay, thanks. Questions? Start at that end. Richard? Nothing? Yes? No? Go ahead.
Well, quite frankly, Your Worship, I find it difficult to ask any questions or comment on this, as it is the first time that Council's seen it. And I would personally like to see us have some time to digest. There was a lot of information you gave us in one shot there. I'd like time to digest this, and I'd like to see it come back to our next meeting for a discussion.
Okay. Going to come back to you then. Scott?
Well, I would agree with that, because my first question was, can you put that last slide back on? Because it went by so fast, I can hardly write the questions, not seeing it. So it would present more opportunity for us to have a fulsome grasp of what was in front of us here. That last slide, I think it was 325,000. It was just the overview. So your comments, Chief, were to that effect. I thought it completely contradicted what we saw there. Do you recall what you just...
Well, what the $325,000 was the value added that you wouldn't take advantage of if the OPP were to come in and provide the services, because they don't provide the community programs, the bylaw, the storefront hours.
Right.
All those expenses, so that's...
And you mentioned we were increasing the level of service, or there was a mention of the word increase.
That we provide an increased level of service?
Well, I was wondering, what was the word increase in reference to? Like, were we looking at increasing some of those, or maintaining status quo, or it's a challenge to eliminate or reduce those because of legislative requirements such as CPIC?
No, those are the things that we provide as an increase over what the basic OPP costing service would provide. So
right.
That's not my numbers, that's the consultant's numbers, saying that when you're considering, make sure you're considering apples to apples, and there are those extra items in there that aren't provided by an OPP contract.
Right, okay. And you went through some of that, and you've elaborated, obviously, for bylaw for us. One question I had was, where do some of the revenues come from where the bylaw under the police retains those revenues which differ, and how do they differ from the city bylaw department?
So it's a position, and when I say bylaw, and what he's referring to in his report is it's a bylaw position where they do licensing for taxis and adult entertainers. The position is identified as a bylaw individual. That's a portion of their work, but as he said, they're all intricate and they're all intertwined, and one person doesn't do just one thing. They also do third-party records checks for outside agencies that we have contracts to supply information to, and agreements that we receive revenue from those third-party records checks, and it's based on our ability to acquire the information through the Canadian Police Information Computer. So it's not something that could even be transferred to City Hall.
Okay. And this is before your time, but did that function used to be somewhat with the city, and then it went over to the police? No, okay, it's always been retained with the police. Okay. That's just a couple questions I had at this time. But
Councilor Merton?
Through your worship, two things come to my mind. Based on what you're saying, the question that I have, what value did we get out of the consultant's study? Because there's quite a disconnect between the information that was provided and your response. Can you help me understand this a little further? Because it's not equating for me.
Well, and I came into it a little bit late in the game as well, and some of the things that I saw didn't really make a lot of, the fact that those positions he's seeing as giving it up, and I see a loss of revenue because that individual does it. Another one, for example, is removing the individual from the community service office, replacing them with a civilian, but later in the recommendations, nowhere does it attribute a cost to putting that individual somewhere else, and there's a savings of the difference between the officer's wage and the civilian wage. Mm-hmm. Yet later in recommendation 13, the recommendation states that they should be putting them back on the front line working with mental health in order to cut costs in that area. So there is some disconnect. I wasn't here, I didn't have a chance to go over it until after I arrived, and we have had discussions. And
So I'm not misreading that confusion. So based on what you've presented, the one opportunity that I see potential for us is the regionalization, because it is pending. I know when I first joined council, that was one of the first motions that I heard. And I'm wondering if there's a time frame to be getting that back, more information, because certainly from all of the rest, based on further study, I'm just not seeing great opportunities here.
So I think coming from the outside, looking at it, the biggest savings and the biggest opportunity is on economies of scale and looking at a bigger service, looking at being able to share resources so you're not tied to a geographic boundary. You can expand your officers into other areas. You can, cover a larger area with not the same number, but a smaller number of the combined. Those are some of the areas that I would say would be your best savings and opportunities for savings. I can do what I've been told to do, and I can go out and do what I've been asked to do. I have had a meeting with the chief in Hanover already, based on the letter that I received from the clerk, or the city manager, pardon me. My apologies. And I've had that meeting already a week or so ago, and that was a preliminary discussion on what areas are there possibilities to do this with, what are the impediments, what are the hurdles, what can we work around, what are the solutions. But obviously, that's one small area, and it's not directly connected to Owen Sound City geographically, so that is another hurdle that we have to get over.
Thank you.
Councillor Dodd, anything?
Thank you, Worship. I did have a couple of questions, but I would agree with Councillor Thomas that I think it's only us doing our due diligence of bringing this back into further report to actually have a full understanding of those recommendations that you went through. I think the biggest question that you can get just from that 10-minute, 15-minute deputation was, so what was the total cost savings that the police board is presenting to council?
Total cost savings for this year?
Yes.
So, and then if you want me to give you an exact number, I'm going to have a little difficult time doing that.
Ballpark will work.
I can tell you that certainly the placeholder when I arrived was 3.7%. We came back and the increase for the police service was 2.25%. Some of that, I'm going to qualify, was offset by provincial grant funding. That was actually 2.9%, but it did end up dropping back to that. I think when you look at the bigger picture, though, that's accounting for a potential wage increase during negotiations this year, and there's no contract in place at the present time. So there had to be a placeholder for that. That was a loss of 1.4% of revenue. Sorry, let me just double check the numbers there. It wasn't 1.4. It was a loss of 1.8% in dispatch contract revenue. So because of the amalgamation and the loss of that contract, there was a $140,000 loss to the amount that we bring in for dispatching. So the 2.99% increase with 1.8% loss and increase in wages, potential increase of wages that's waiting to be determined. It came in as a savings. I don't know what the actual number would be.
Because I think what the main purpose of what the reason why we undertook a service review of the police services operation was we received that OPP costing. We realized that we have a huge financial situation that's going on within our municipality, whether it's the police department, fire department, parks department, operations, no matter what it is. And I know you did sit through our previous budget meeting a couple months ago, and I can tell you we put a lot of people through the ringer on making sure that our costs are under control. So for me, and I'm really happy that the police board members are sitting here as well, is that there's a strong, strong push from this council, I believe, to ensuring that our costs are always brought back down. Anything you can do to find efficiencies. When you brought on here, you have years and years of experience from another municipality, and I know the police board and our council will be looking to you to also find some of those efficiencies just from your past experiences. But I would love to see that a report further on to go through some more of those recommendations and discuss it later. But thank you. That was great.
Deputy Mayor O'Leary? Councillor Tamik?
Chief, none of these comments are directed at you. I know you're new in your position, and I appreciate that. I am massively disappointed. I just have to be candid with you. During the election, which doesn't seem that long ago, and years leading up to that, anybody coming up to me on the street, at my office, anybody concerned about municipal politics in this city was concerned about police and fire. And I'm aware of the limits of the Police Act. I know we can't rewrite your budget for you, but I'm very disappointed. Is there a single meaningful expense that you're prepared to cut?
I think I've already explained that the budget, I think I've already explained that the actual budget with the loss of increase in revenue and the amounts that we lost in revenue and the increase that we ended up with, I believe the actual increase was very limited to probably about what our increase in wages is going to be. And one of the problems that you have when you're managing a police service is 90% or more of your budget, overall budget, goes to salaries and benefits.
Is there a single meaningful, I'm not cross-examining you, Mr. Mayor, is there a single meaningful expense you're prepared to cut? I don't see it.
I think a lot of the 17 efficiencies that we've put in place, that is cutting costs, and that is what is keeping the budget where it is now.
So just sort of a standstill as opposed to cuts. Would you agree with that? In any event.
I guess the question would be, is a standstill as opposed to cuts? It depends on if you're talking about meeting inflation, and when you have 90% of your budget going to salaries and benefits, and it's your collective bargaining. If that's the amount of your increase, no, you're not going to get a cut.
No, I mean the mandate of this council, the previous council, as I understand it, which would certainly be supported, I believe, from those councillors that got elected, the mandate from council was to find $1 million or as close to it as you could, and I don't see that. So I'm just making that by way of observation, but I'll move on. Last week, I read a 20-page report, sir, on municipal ice time and how it should be allocated. For this meeting, dealing with, I think, one of the crucial issues facing this city, I read a 3.5-page executive summary that told me virtually very little by a consulting firm that I tried to find their website. I have tried to find out if they've done this before, this kind of consulting, and whether they've accomplished that in the past, whether they've actually implemented police cuts. I haven't seen it. But I'm very disappointed to get a 3.5-page description of what we might be doing. Now, I appreciate you added some material to it and so forth. Contrary to Councillor Thomas and some of the rest on that side, I don't need to have you come back in a couple of weeks having read the report that was just presented to us verbally today. Basically, you're not suggesting anything that would come close to the hundreds of thousands of dollars that we asked you very hard as a police force to find. It just didn't happen. But I'll move on. You recommend a regional police force, and I'm afraid, and I support his worship's efforts to conduct discussions, I believe, with Wes Gray and so forth, not against it, but in my view, any discussion of a regional police force is a recipe, frankly, for inaction. Georgian Bluffs ain't going to dance with us. Meaford isn't going to dance with us. That stuff isn't going to happen. And so when we that's just putting off the discussions.
Wait a minute, we haven't asked them. Do you want them to answer themselves?
I'm just
You're putting words into their mouth.
Mr. Mayor, is that a point of order, Your Worship? I'm trying to make my point, and I'm almost done. So I was hoping
At
for...
least be honest with it when you make it. Be accurate.
Where's the dishonesty, Mr. Mayor? I am not happy that the city has asked our police force to try find significant cost savings. And in preparing for this meeting, sir, all I receive is a 3.5-page memo. I don't think that's fair to the ratepayers of this city. That's all I'm saying. I personally think that if the savings are not there, keeping in mind the mandate was to find hundreds of thousands in savings, if that's not there, I'd like to see council reopen the OPP debate and reopen the OPP option, but that's for a later date. Those are my comments. Thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you, Chief Ambrose, for your summary of the report that was put before us on the review of police services. Having sat through the review, the tail end of the review, I can certainly appreciate all the things that you are doing, and I look forward to your new ideas that you are bringing forward for some other revenue generation to police services. And once Councillor Hamley is finished, I have another question for the Chief that's a different topic.
Thank you. Go ahead, Councillor Hamley.
it's always difficult to go last with these issues, but I think it's pretty safe to say that the consultant's report is incredibly disappointing. When the last council asked for $1 million in savings, and the consultant comes back with $225,000, that's 22.5%. Usually, you would think that a consultant could be able to find much, much closer. And then the chief comes tonight, and I'm not angry at the chief, I'm just being very animated right now. And you're saying that what he's suggesting will actually increase the costs by $122,000, roughly? Yeah, I mean, there's just one word for that, and it's just disappointing.
Okay, others? Answer?
Yeah,
Go ahead.
Go ahead. So, and I just wanted to reply to that the consultant, I think, probably one of the highlights of his report was at the beginning when he explained, and during my only time I had an opportunity to sit down with him, was that it's an extremely efficiently run police service. The cost being what the cost is, there's two options, and that's service delivery and what that expectation is, and or the cost, or amalgamation and trying to save money by joining and partnering and trying to make some efficiencies of scale. Those were the 2 areas that he pointed out that are probably the biggest difference, and so I just wanted to point that out.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor Wright, did it again.
Whatever. Thanks, Craig, for your presentation. Is there anything in terms of contract recruiting for dispatch on the go right now?
Contract recruiting for dispatch?
Yeah, like recruiting more contracts?
Yeah, so at the last small and mid-sized chiefs meeting I attended, I let everybody know that Owen Sound's actively looking for more contracting for dispatch services. If anybody's interested, I brought up the 911 and the fact that there will be increased costs in purchasing equipment, and it would probably be the opportune time if somebody's thinking of changing their format of how they're doing it right now. Right. There is some belief by some individuals that that there's going to be some type of funding for the upgrades to the 911 system. It's been said a number of times, and during all the CRTC discussions on Next Gen 911, that will not be the case. There are some people holding out, hoping that there will be infrastructure payments for them to upgrade, so they're holding off on making a decision on that. But there are a number that I'm speaking to now about that opportunity for the future.
Right, so you're still looking to expand, though?
Yes.
Okay, and we will have a copy, we will all get the copy of this report. I think one of the things that council needs to know is, after the OPP costing, it was our understanding that it was $1 million difference. So if there's accuracy in Joe's report, it's not going to be $1 million. If there's a difference of services that the OPP was not covering, and Owen Sound is, we need to find out what that number is. If that $1 million has come down to $500,000 and Craig has gained $225,000, then we're closing the gap. If it's $900,000 and we're still $700,000 or $750,000 apart, then we'll have to move on with something different. But I think we should at least wait until we have some accurate numbers.
Can I comment on that?
Sure.
So the OPP costing, and I've come in late, and I've only read the report that you probably had as well. During the first 3 years of the transition, the actual OPP costing said it would be $8,577,000 for the first 3 years, and that was when they take over and they implement the same programs and the same function as the city service provides now. The savings of $1 million is what was in year 4 to 10, where they then come in and they decide what the service level based on the previous 3 years is that you require as a community based on the OPP's level of service. Their actual cost to do that is higher than ours at the present time. It's depending for years 4 to 10, pardon me. The other thing that is it's the prediction, and I will say right now, and I've already quoted it already. Mental health calls for service are up 30% over last year and this coming year up until April. I don't see that changing unless we implement some of the other things that we're doing, and I've already gone to the board about that, about making some changes to address that issue. If we don't do that, years 4 to 7 are based on some skewed numbers, and they're based on calls for service and response for service that I don't see accurately being reflected anymore as times have changed since the time that report was submitted.
So there's something, Chief, if you're coming back and we're going to have a discussion, would it be too much to ask for you to do like a written report on your own personal thoughts on the comparison between
Absolutely.
OPP? Can you do that?
Absolutely.
And I would find that interesting, I think. Thank you.
Go ahead, Carol.
In addition to Deputy Mayor's request, could you also do a projection based on the mental health calls? Because if we're already on an increase comparatively speaking, I would like to know as we move forward, what is that going to do for the police services and the need and costing? I think that's one category we know is changing as we speak.
So I can project some numbers probably, but it's intricate. It's intricate because all the parts move at the same time. And one of the areas that we have to, we are addressing, and it comes down to provincial funding, and there will be a slight shortfall in that based on the information that we've gotten. But we're writing grants right now as we speak, and one of those areas that have to be addressed is mental health in order to qualify for some of those funding agreements. So, so I can't project what it's going to be in a year if we change the complete way that we handle mental health calls for service now, and we partner with an outside agency and hopefully do a much better job as a community in dealing with individuals who are suffering from mental health issues.
What would be helpful is to do a comparative analysis with the way you're providing the service now and an analysis of what would happen with the provincial funding and partnering. So we get some concept of the difference and what it would mean to the tax base, basically. Thank you.
Thank you.
Just to wrap up, Chief Ambrose, you weren't here at the time, but we got an OPP costing, obviously, that I think their recommendation was they're going to hire 4 or 5 new officers that they felt they needed to cover the calls or the occurrences that are going on in Owen Sound now. We think of the city hired Mr. Levac first to do a report to us, to go through that OPP report. And certainly that, $1 million difference, I think, was what would play out in approximately 10 years. He recognized, and I think we all recognized at the time, that a lot of that is having one, we call him a chief, the police call him an inspector, I believe. I think we've now got an inspector that's covering, from Chatsworth, is covering all of Wyerton up to the tip of the Bruce. To OPP, Meaford, Grey Highlands, like pretty well all of Grey. South Grey will be going the other way, I think, into Shelburne. So it's that level of sharing of upper management and sharing of resources and sharing of report writing and all those things spread out over a wider area, which was a big part of the savings that was recognized by Mr. Levac's report right from the start. The other thing is the OPP do not provide the same level of service as we have in our town. If we want a lower level of service, then we're going to have to make that decision that we want a lower level of service. If you don't want a drug squad in your town, in the city of Owen Sound, then it can be eliminated. If that's really what you want, how many times do any of us hear from somebody complaining about people on the street on drugs, people on the street with mental health, and that we're not doing enough? We can eliminate that department. That will save us hundreds of thousands of dollars, but at what cost? We can eliminate the community programs, going to schools, so you don't have that training, the drug training for your kids when they're in grade 8 or grade 7 or grade 6 or whatever it is that we start them at now to try and teach them things. The level of impaired driving that, think about what it was when we were growing up around here. Think about what it is now, the education that has gone into that. So we can cut things from police, we can cut services. We can make those changes. What services do we want? Don't ask someone else to make the decision. What services do we want and what are we willing to cut and what are the consequences? What is our community willing to accept? That's the tough decision. So without making those changes, without making those cuts in services, without being able to we need to get to some kind of regional thing to find most of the savings. I've been talking to other communities in the area. They're complaining about the level of service that they're getting from OPP and that they've got drug problems in their small little villages. And they've got break-and-enters into cars, and they've got break-and-enters into sheds and equipment very, very, very close to here, and not enough coverage from OPP to deal with their drug issue. And their drug issue is, the break-and-enters is caused by the drug issue. We know that we've got an opiate crisis in our community and across Grey and Bruce and across Ontario and across Canada. There are results because of that. We're finding mental health issues that are going up, and it's partly drug-related and it's partly mental health-related. So those things are ongoing. We looked at that at the police board. But if we want to make those changes, we're going to have to decide as a council that we don't want those things. And meanwhile, we're going to be talking to every municipality we can, and I'm not writing off anybody as saying no to us until they say no to us. Richard, you want a motion? Up to you.
I would like to move that we have a further report, that we have this come back to council in 2 weeks. I didn't mean necessarily the chief had to come back. He's a busy guy. And if I could just add for a second, Your Worship, I just want to be clear that I appreciate the work the Police Services Board and the Police Department have done on this. And this is not about the service we receive as a community. This is about the hard issues that we face up here as a council. We are under extreme financial pressure as a council and as a city. And so we have to, we have to do it a little differently because of the Police Act and the way we try to get information. And, I don't want anyone on the police service thinking that any of us here are disparaging the service or the good work that the service does. For us, it's about the financial pressure that we're under and trying to find some way to deal with that. The police budget is probably the largest single portion of budget that we deal with. We had a challenge from our MPP last week, and the province is challenging municipalities to find 4 cents on the dollar. So if we don't participate in the challenge, I'm quite sure we're going to be losing 4 cents on the dollar on our Municipal Partnership Fund grant next year. Even more pressure on us. So it would be nice if we could find a way to work more closely together to try to find ways to mitigate the tremendous financial pressure that we're under. I would like to have this come back in 2 weeks. I'd like a chance to look at this report and to sort of digest its contents a little more fully and then have a discussion at council.
So motion's on the floor, Mr. Ritchie.
I just wonder, Chief Ambrose, would 2 weeks be enough for a fulsome report, or I don't believe time is of the urgency.
So you want this done up in a report format? Sorry, just to clarify, because
Yeah. Yeah, my only request was to see what we've seen here already tonight, and I know there were a few other requests for information. I'm happy to take your guidance on how much time it might take to pull all that together. I'm just saying 2 weeks because I like to get things going.
Well, the next 2 weeks are grant deadline, so I would hate to strap myself and not get that.
6 weeks?
That might be better.
So that would take us, I'm sure the clerk can help us with the date of the meeting, but let's put that in as our date.
Okay. July 18th, I think, around there is approximately. Okay, so to the motion, any other comments?
I just want to clarify, are you looking for another report from the chief on the same topics, or just this same presentation, as it already is outlined, being brought back forth?
That's what I'm looking for. Same presentation we've just seen. I just need some time to really digest it. But that said, there were a couple of other requests around the table for more information.
So we make sure that we get the report we want. Who else?
Carol.
Someone else.
Mary.
Go ahead, Carol.
I had asked for the comparative analysis, recognizing our greatest growth is in the mental health issues, to give us some idea around the issue of servicing and the costing potentially.
Thank you. I think Deputy Mayor O'Leary, I think you had a comment.
Marion had something to add.
I thought you added something to it.
No, the only thing I asked for was your opinion on the OPP costing versus
There we
the-
go.
I wanted to make sure that was in there.
Great.
So you're adopting some additions to your motion,
I'll consider those as friendly amendments.
and then it'll be up to Ms. Bloomfield to put it together into words. And anyone else? Okay, I'm going to call the question. All in favor? And that is carried. Thank you very much.
Worship, I had one additional.
Please go ahead.
And I only want to take advantage of the chief being here to explain this to council. Recently, there was a major case management compliance report conducted on Old Town Police Services, and I wanted the chief to just highlight some of the findings of that report.
So back in last fall, again before I arrived, but fortunately I'm familiar with the audit. I was running it before I left, so at another service. The Ministry of Solicitor General, now then Community Safety and Correctional Services, runs an audit program where they come in to make sure that everybody's meeting the adequacy standards and they're following things according to procedure. This year they selected the major case management software and the major case management format of investigations for serious offenses of serious nature. It includes homicides, serial sexual assaults, all those things. So they did an audit on that. Our compliance rate was relatively low. We had submitted all the necessary documentation. The timeline in order to get it submitted into the computer system and the use of that system was what dropped the compliance rate low because of the timelines. There's a 30-day mandated legislated timeline to get that entered into the computer system, and that wasn't being met in all the cases. We've implemented changes. They've been sent to the ministry. They've been given to the board as well to our procedures so that it creates positions and accountability to move that forward. So now we should have no issues with compliance moving forward.
Okay, anyone else following up those questions? No, good. Thank you very much. So since the Chief Inspector, the board, Brent Down from the Police Association being here, thank you all. 9D in my agenda, I've got Mr. Kafalis with regard to a Downtown River Precinct update, if anything.
Thank you, Worship. Nothing to report this week.
Perfect, thank you.
Just kidding.
Oh.
As you can see, a great deal of the underground work has taken place. The water main is completed to the intersection of 8th Street. We're tentatively planning to do the live tap connection on Wednesday. Our own forces will be doing that. That will ensure the road will only be closed for one day. However, we are waiting for a piece of equipment to return that's currently in Kitchener under repair, and if it does arrive in time, we'll be doing it Wednesday. If not, it'll be postponed till next week. The contractor's working hard at putting all the storm sewer in. You'll see all the storm scepters, which are the outfall devices that essentially clean up some of the storm water before it enters the Sydenham River. There are a few catch basins left to be installed, as well as the sub-drains that are installed from the catch basins to drain the road base. Today was kind of an exciting day because we did get the color palettes for the trim, roof, windows, and siding for the pavilion itself. So a decision will be made in the next day or so as to the color scheme for the new pavilion. And next week, we anticipate additional surfacing work to take place and eventually, hopefully, start working on that slab for the pavilion itself, and that's anticipated to start sometime late June, early July.
Any questions for Mr. Kafalis? Go ahead.
I just want to know who's picking the colors. So is this coming through the operations committee, or you and I are going to sit down and go over the colors, or what exactly are we doing here?
I am picking the colors, and they'll be red, white, and blue for the Montreal Canadiens. Just kidding. It'll be mostly planning and the heritage, I guess, aspect of it. So Justin Teagle will take the lead on that. And he's already made some great choices, and as long as he's not affected by some of the other staff members, we should be good to go.
So the background to that, Dennis, is if you'd been around a few years ago, well, there was probably blood on the floor after committee meetings about the color of the buses and whether the wheels would be round or square. It went on one night that the whole committee got to fight over the colors. So have at it. Thanks. Public question period. Anybody? Mr. Botten? I thought so. Come on up. You know what to do. Which button to push? Thanks.
Yes, my name is Ray Botten. I'm a resident of Bowen Sound. My question is, who do I thank? I've been here 17 years. Who do I thank? When the police officer has been there for me, the paramedics have been there for me, the doctors, the staff here behind the scenes who work endlessly at a sacrifice that nobody knows. Who do I thank at the council who takes the brunt of people like me? Who do I thank? But one thing that really set it out for me to ask this question was Harrison Park, because somebody paved the trail that I'm riding on for my own health. Who do I thank? So that's my question. Who do I thank for that road?
I think Ms. Coulter can take, and a committee, but
I want to thank the person that made a decision to do that, because
committee and council would have made the decision, but staff certainly helped us get there, and it was an important decision.
I'm saying I was riding on it and I said, I got to thank that person. And I want to thank everyone behind the scenes and those who are on the front lines, because it's a question period. Who do I thank? I thank you all. Thank you.
I think everybody heard it, Ray, that needs to hear it, because we've got police here and we've got fire here and people watching. So thank you for that.
Did I say, I forgot the fire? I didn't say the fire. The fire, thank God I haven't needed them. But they're there and they're sacrificing. I met them. They're very kind, and their families. All the families, who do I thank? Thank you.
Thank you.
Ray, I just want to comment that I think council's behind the community. The community helps do a lot of these things, and if you're happy, we're happy.
Councillor Gregg?
Thanks, Rob. I was just going to mention you could take the time to write a letter and address it to the Accessibility Committee, because the Accessibility Committee played a large role in that recommendation to Council.
Go ahead.
Ray, thank you. You're a good man, and you speak for a constituency in this town that sometimes has a voice that does not get heard. And I just want to acknowledge that. Thank you for saying thank you.
Anyone that's been around City Hall the last couple of weeks, Ray's been out with his guitar out in front singing very nicely, and I know a few staff members have opened their windows to be able to listen to him, so we appreciate it. If we move on, number 11, we have no correspondence for our consideration. Number 12A from Mr. Kafalis, I think. Development charges and water rate study.
I'll actually be handling that one with Alan being off, Your Worship. I think Dennis has spent his time with the Montreal Canadiens.
I think that was payback.
The subject of tonight's report is development charges and water rate study update process. The recommendation is, respecting the development charges and water rate study update process, Council receives the report for information purposes. Development charges provide for the recovery of growth-related capital expenditures from new development. On May 25, 2015, Council passed and enacted the City's Development Charges Bylaw covering the period March 1, 2015 to March 1, 2020. As the term of the existing bylaw is set to expire, an update to the Development Charges background study and a new bylaw is required to be in place by March 1, 2020. The background study identifies the service needs that can be attributed to growth over the forecast period 10 years and further. In August 2007, the Ontario regulation was enacted, which requires all water operators to prepare financial plans for their systems. On March 16, 2015, City Council approved the current water and wastewater financial plans, passing a bylaw to enact the plans for the 2015 to 2020 period. As this bylaw is also set to expire, an update to the financial plan is required to be in place prior to March of 2020. Because the information in each plan is integral to the other, staff determined that it would be beneficial to award the consulting contracts for the plan updates as part of one RFP process to one consultant to ensure that the information utilized in each plan is consistent and to reduce any duplication of efforts on the side of the consultants. The RFP closed, proposals were evaluated, and staff has awarded the contract for the update to both plans to Hempson Consulting Limited. Hempson is a well-known firm in municipal finance and has experience in preparing numerous development charge and water and wastewater rate studies for the public sector across Canada, and their proposal includes the preferred amount of consultants' time to achieve the best outcomes for Owen Sound. Recently, Hempson completed a growth management strategy for the County of Grey and is familiar with the growth dynamics in Owen Sound. Development charge studies will commence as follows. Kickoff meeting early to mid-June. Primer to be scheduled with Council mid to late summer of 2019. Public meetings to be held in early December of 2019. Bylaw to be passed by the end of 2019 or before the expiration of the current bylaw on March 1st, 2020. The water and wastewater financial plans will occur concurrently to the DC study update. Kickoff meeting in conjunction with the DC study early to mid-June. Primer scheduled with Council mid to late summer. Final presentation to Council in November of 2019. Submission to the province in advance of expiry of the existing plan in February 2020. The DC study process will include a mandatory public engagement process and public meetings. All meetings with Council will be open to the public, and the process will be open and transparent. And I would encourage Council, I would encourage our development community, I would encourage our citizens to get involved now. We want your input so that Council can fully assess what it is you want this community to do moving ahead. I believe, as you've heard me say, Your Worship, our growth time is here, and we need a development charge as well as a water plan that Council, the community supports and is prepared to carry for the next 5 years. So that is the report, Your Worship, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Council? Councillor Martin?
Through your worship, the study that will happen, will it be looking retrospectively on the effectiveness of the bylaw that was put into place regarding development charges, growth, and where our asset management plan is? If we're moving to look at a new bylaw, are we going to be looking historically, did the bylaw achieve what we wanted it to achieve?
Certainly, through Your Worship, it will be a fulsome review with staff, with Council, with the consultant, to understand what worked in our previous bylaw and our previous study, and also what didn't work, both for the development charges plan, also for the water and wastewater financial plans, because certainly trying to predict 10 years out in the future what's going to occur, a 5-year financial plan to match, I don't think it's a secret. We didn't quite match those up, particularly in the water and wastewater plans. That's why we need everyone's involvement now to make sure this time, I think now, hopefully, the community realizes how important it is. So yes, it will be a fulsome review, what went wrong as well as what we're going to get right in the future.
Thank you.
Councillor Gregg?
Thanks, Mayor Boy. I guess I'll start with just discussing the development charge. I'm not against development charges per se. I did a terrible job last council meeting articulating well the impact that a development charge can have. We, as a council, came to a decision to waive DCs on 2 properties, and one of our rationales was because it is a contribution or a meaningful contribution to lessening the escalation of affordable housing, or what's affordable. Well, in that one instance, over 10 years at about 5.5% interest a month, that's about $40 a month per unit in that one facility. So I think when you bring it down to that level, it really starts to identify the impact that development charges have on the general residential, the resident, the homeowner in the city. Hardly anyone would complain about what we don't have in Owen Sound. But I understand what we have to focus on is replacing what we already have. The last study on a line-by-line item, looking at all the contributors to what calculated that charge, we had a ton of stuff in there that would never get built. I don't think any of us are ever going to live long enough here to see a $450,000 escarpment staircase built to Victoria Park. The plan was full of items like that, and what occurs is a little percentage here, a ratio there, everything goes into this calculation charge, and it makes us less competitive when people are evaluating where to move to, where to invest. So one of my concerns at this point, or where do we identify what goes into that calculation? Last time I feel every item that was ever put into a master plan was pushed into the calculation. Well, we did a master plan update for Parks and Recreation 2 years ago, and I think there was about 71 people wanted a soccer dome. We don't have the monies to afford to build a soccer dome nor operate it. So does the inclusion of that into a plan mean that it's going to be in the calculation of the development charge? That's what I'd like better understanding on at this point. How do we get a firm grasp and control on what's practical and what's probably not practical or reasonable in calculating this?
Through your worship, certainly those are very valid comments from the councillor. 5 years is a long time in the life of a city. It's a long time in the life of the province. But where council will get that understanding is in the kickoff meeting with the consultant, where the terms will be laid out clearly from council, what they expect to achieve from this. And I truly believe what council and the community expects to achieve is a reasonable development charges plan that isn't overstated so that we can justify charging $40,000 development charges. It will be what can council and the community support. There is no doubt, and again, the consultant will do a far better job than I do of explaining development charge theory, but there is a cost to development, there is a cost to growth. What you're deciding is who's going to pay that cost. If the developer coming in and the people who come in pay none of it, future taxpayers pay it all. It's finding that right balance, but that's why we bring a consultant in who can explain the details of you and the theory to you far better than I can. But it'll be at that meeting where we will start to lay that groundwork, Councillor.
Okay, somebody want to move? Councillor Thomas?
I would move the recommendation.
Just to receive the full report for information purposes. Any other discussion? All in favor? That is carried. 12B is the report on Harbour Fest.
I'll be doing that one as well, Your Worship. I might have a drink just before I get into this one.
Some people might have a drink that night, too. So.
The subject of this report is Harbour Fest, July 13th, 2019. And the recommendation is that City Council, number one, approves the operation of a licensed area on municipally owned property and a portion of First Avenue East on Saturday, July 13th, 2019, 11 a.m. to 10 p.m., subject to conditions outlined in Schedule A. And two, deems the event as a municipally significant event and requests that the agreement include the indemnification clauses as per policy CS 80. Harbour Fest was approved by Council as a new event in 2018. following a very successful first year, HarborFest 2019 will take place Saturday, July 13th. HarborFest offers residents and visitors a free one-day rain or shine, all-ages event, drawing crowds to Owen Sound's Inner Harbor for food, drink, live entertainment, and fun family activities. The licensed area attracted almost 6,000 attendees, with many people spending time and enjoying their day throughout the entire Inner Harbor. Investment Planning Council has returned as the presenting sponsor, with Coca-Cola and Sunbelt Rentals as supporting partners. The main stage and licensed entertainment area will be located on 1st Avenue East between 11th and 12th Streets and include the adjacent parking lot. There are currently 7 craft beer, wine, and cider vendors confirmed for the event, including Mudtown Station, Duntroon Cider House, Callanan Brewing Company, McLean's Ales, Cowbell Brewing, Coffin Ridge, and Black Bellows. The food vendor area is full, with many of the 2018 vendors returning, along with some new ones. Local entertainers will provide entertainment at the main stage throughout the day until 7 p.m. At 7 p.m., Stacey Renee will perform, and at 8 p.m., the headline act, Who Made Who, one of Canada's premier AC/DC cover bands, will take the stage. A call for community partners to participate in the event has been issued via media release and on social media. To date, confirmed participants include Tibbs Management, At Last Adventures, Seasons Retirements, Sydenham Sportsman, Coca-Cola, Shalimar Body Art, Ontario Energy Board, Owen Sound Rowing Club, Grey Bruce Health Unit, Tom Thompson Art Gallery, and the Owen Sound Police Services. Municipal significance, licensing, and security. The city has followed the guidelines set forth in the city's municipal alcohol policy, including the completion of the operational plan to the satisfaction of the Owen Sound Police Services, Fire and Emergency Services, and Alcohol and Gaming Commission of Ontario. Municipal significance. In May of 2013, City Council approved policy CS80, designation of event as municipally significant, with respect to an application for a public event special occasion permit. The event meets the requirements to be designated an event of municipal significance outlined in policy CS80. And with that, Your Worship, I'd be happy to answer any questions about HarborFest 2019.
Councillor Hamley?
I'll just move the recommendation, Your Worship.
Were you there last year? Comments? Go ahead.
Councillor Hamley, for those who like to rock, I salute you.
Oh, man, he's been saving that since noon hour. Councillor Gregg.
Still getting over that. I have a question. I've had it brought to my attention by a couple people on bringing their own water bottles to this event. Is there a quench buggy that's going to be located at the entrance so that we can accommodate? You know, I just think of a pregnant mom who's not going to be drinking craft brew, or maybe shouldn't be, that night. And we want to have that healthier option, that alternative that's right there. And I can understand some concerns with ensuring that the bottle is empty, but if we force people to empty their bottle, that we have a free alternative right there, and the quench buggy just jumped out at me as an alternative. So where are we on that?
It's my understanding the quench buggy apparently will be there, Your Worship.
Who else had their hand up long here? You did. Go ahead.
I don't know.
No? Chicken egg. Okay. Anyone down there? No. So I'm going to call the question. All in favor? That's carried. Fortunately, I'm going to be at a wedding in Ottawa that weekend, but it sure was fun last year with all the boats lined up and all the people downtown. It sure brought our harbor to life, both sides of the harbor, so it'll be great this year. 12C, I think a report from from you? Okay, so Ms. Bloomfield's presenting a report, I guess, from Ms. Van Alphen.
Thank you, Your Worship. All fees charged by the city must be authorized by bylaw. The fees and charges bylaw contains all current fees in a single place, accessible to council, staff, and the public. This report has been prepared to outline recommended changes to fee amounts that would be effective July 1st, 2019. Each department was responsible for providing the recommended fee changes and the rationale for the change to the deputy clerk, who has compiled them under Attachment 1. Attachment 2 is a draft of the 2019 fees and charges bylaw with all material changes highlighted in red. The recommendation in the report is to direct staff to provide notice of the city's intention to amend the fees and charges bylaw and bring forward the 2019 fees and charges bylaw for council's consideration. We'll also note that the Director of Community Services has an addition to Schedule E that I will let her speak to.
Thank you, Your Worship. City Policy CS79 is the minor sports subsidy, and for tournaments and competitions run by minor sport groups, they shall pay the appropriate facility rental fee, and the 30% subsidy rate shall apply for ice time at prime or non-prime rates. Unfortunately, that fee, because it was in a policy, I guess, hasn't been included in the actual fees bylaw. As the clerk mentioned, all fees to be charged must be authorized by a bylaw, and we'd ask council to add that fee to Schedule E in the ice time section.
Okay. Any other questions? Go ahead. Other one of you.
Sure, I have a first question here. I'll just scroll back up if I'm on the right chart, because there's a lot of them. Actually, I think it's Attachment 1. And, it's regarding the shinny. There's a note here that participation has been decreasing. I'm just wondering, at what point does staff evaluate whether that program should continue or whether it should be ice that's rented at a better revenue point?
Through you, Your Worship, often the shinny time is at a lunch break in a hockey school, so it usually doesn't impact an all-day rental. However, if it doesn't work this summer, some extra promotion and lowering the fee, it is something that will probably come back to council and say it's a city program we would no longer offer.
Good, thanks. Councillor Dodd?
I was hoping Scott was going to move that recommendation while he was there, but I'll take that one. I'll move it.
Okay. Any other discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? That's carried. Report from Fire Chief Barfoot with regard to fire dispatch agreement with the city police.
Thank you, Your Worship. If we go back to the spring of 2018, with council's blessing, we hired an outside consulting agency to come in and have a look at the operations of the Owen Sound Fire Service. They came to council in July of 2018 with some recommendations. One of the recommendations was that we have a formal agreement set between us and Owen Sound Dispatch. The Owen Sound Police started their dispatch service, I believe, in early 2000. We jumped on board at that time, and there's been nothing formally laid down in between us since that time, yet we have been dealing with them. So it has been done, I believe you have a copy of it. So what it does, it just lays out exactly what they could do for us and how much it's going to cost. The cost is in here, it's within the operating budget, and the cost is there for the next 2 years, if I'm not mistaken. So what we're asking council is to give staff the okay to come back with a bylaw to put this into place.
Okay. Councillor Craig?
Well, I'll have a question. Really, this just equates to an in and out then, correct? Like, this is an expense now being incurred by the fire department, but this is a revenue for the police department budget.
Exactly. Yes.
Yeah, it's just that it's not mentioned in the report, just to clarify that. So the impact to the taxpayer should be nothing, it's just formalizing. So I'll move the recommendation.
Good. Go ahead, Councillor Tam.
Thank you, Chief Barfoot. I wonder if you could take this opportunity to speak to something. In July of 18, as you say, there was a fire audit. And one of the conclusions of that audit really perplexed me, and I'm sure it perplexed yourself as well. They said they had no way, the consultants, having looked at the books, they had no way really of telling the response times and so forth. You know what I'm talking about, right, Chief?
Exactly. Yes.
Would this assist with that as a problem or not?
No. What the point they were talking about at that time is that was for our third alarm and second alarm crew coming back in and getting on scene. Okay? That has nothing to do with dispatch. That is our guys signing in on a document when they came back. Exactly.
Other questions? Call the question. All in favor? That is carried. Thank you.
Thank you.
I think we're at 12E. Ms. Bloomfield again with amendment to fees and charges bylaw.
Thank you, Your Worship. This report outlines the changes required to implement a daily parking pass. An amendment needs to be made to the fees and charges bylaw and the parking permits and street parking rental policy. Notice of this proposed change was provided on May 14th, with the cost of the pass being $5. The pass will be available through the city's website or by visiting City Hall. The recommendation in the report is to bring forward a bylaw to amend the fees and charges bylaw and the parking permits and street parking rental policy as outlined in the report.
Discussion? Go ahead. Councillor Kemp.
Thank you, Worship. I'd be happy to move the resolution.
Okay. Discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? That's carried. 12F, Ms. Calder, I think, presenting Amy Cahn's, Planner Cahn's report on Bill 108.
Thank you, Worship. This is a report on Bill 108, the More Homes, More Choices Act, and there's proposed amendments to 13 pieces of provincial legislation geared at reducing red tape toward building more affordable housing. Staff focused on 6 of the acts that are bolded in the report that have, we felt, the most impact in terms of sort of land use planning and own sound. The Conservation Authorities Act, Council had a detailed presentation at your last meeting, so I won't spend too much time there. And Council's resolution is attached, and it was already sent to the province. In terms of the Development Charges Act, it does provide for deferral agreements, and we have, or the last council actually did a deferral agreement. It does allow for freezing of a development charge at a date and time. Often there's increases during the 5-year term of the bylaw. Just we're recommending some checks and balances in place to make sure that the development's at a stage in which it's appropriate to do that. But really no issues or concerns with those. In terms of the Endangered Species Act, I know this was something discussed at County Council, that there would be additional notice to the public when a species is to be listed, and there is a risk at that point that if a developer or landowner knows they have that species, that habitat could be destroyed. The Act would also allow for offsetting permissions using payment in lieu where there's habitat or species that would be impacted, and certainly it's hoped, there's not a lot of detail, but that would be based on science-based environmental impact study and be location specific. In terms of the Local Planning Appeal Tribunal Act, this staff has the changes. The LPAT is still very new. We haven't actually experienced the hearing. On its face, the suggestion that there be increased mediation and increased dispute resolution seems positive. However, the information that has to be provided in support of those conferences is significant. So I think it's pretty early in that new, in the LPAT to sort of say that changes are, should be coming. In terms of the Ontario Heritage Act, it may be more work for our staff, but we are generally supportive of the changes toward additional clarity. The 30 days notice to an owner if we're putting something on the Heritage Register, it's certainly been this city's practice that we would only add properties with the cooperation of the landowner. In terms of the clear designation bylaw, including the cultural heritage value and the heritage attributes, again, positive. In terms of timelines with the notice of intention to designate, the 90-day timeline to give notice and then a decision within 120 days is positive, because at that point in time all development permits are frozen on that property. In terms of the, there is some unclearness in terms of the objections to the notice of intention to designate, that those hearings would be held by council. Right now, it's the Conservation Review Board or the LPAT who would make a recommendation non-binding to council, so we're just not sure on how those hearings will work. There may be some benefit from the input through that non-binding recommendation. There is a recommendation or a proposal to clarify some terms, which I think is positive. In terms of the Planning Act, they're proposing a change in official plans to go from 1 to 2 accessory apartments, sort of as of right. And certainly this is an excellent way that we see intensification happen in our community, often creating affordable housing, but I think we just want to pay some attention to ensure that hard and soft services are accounted for, and that perhaps a rural location may not be the best place for that intensification as of right. So just looking at those hard and soft services. In terms of removing appeal permissions for subdivision of land, so it looks like they would remove appeal rights only for prescribed persons. Our understanding is that wouldn't include people who come to a public meeting or write in, that they would be agencies prescribed in the Act. And certainly council has a role in terms of the public interest, and it's the planner's responsibility to look after the public interest. And while there may be some pros and cons, it does certainly emphasize the need for excellent policy framework at the local level if we're removing those appeal rights for people. In terms of shortening the time frames for dealing with applications, it may be unrealistic expectation to go, for example, on a zoning bylaw from 150 days currently to 90 days without the province also shortening some of those notice provisions. I just looked quickly at a zoning amendment. You know, there's within 30 days we have to give notice of complete application to the applicant and then to the public, and then there's a 20-day notice of the public meeting. There's a 20-day appeal period adding up to about 85 days. So it hasn't been our experience that we run into a lot of appeals where we've run out of time. Often we're working cooperatively with the developer to work through any questions or things that have come up through the public process, but it certainly may result in more appeals. It also will result in us have to strengthen the completeness of applications. So for example, we may say, we'll accept a plan of subdivision application with a phase 1 archaeological because we know the phase 2 is going to be here in 3 months. Whereas now, if with that shorter timeline, we may be required to have all of those things up front. It may also create situations where if council's feeling pressured, you'll end up refusing an application if an affirmative decision is premature. So we may be just on the cusp of working out an issue, and then we're rushed to make a decision, which may be unfortunate. All said, however, we've never have had an appeal in Owen Sound that I can remember in the last 18 years relating to council's time to make a decision. So, Your Worship, that's a very quick run-through of a lot of changes in legislation that staff's been looking at. And the recommendation is just that you would receive the report and that the clerk forward the report to the MPP and the county clerk and post it on the EBR prior to June 1.
Good. Thank you. Questions? Councillor Kepke, you've got your mic on already. No, go ahead. No, now you have to talk.
Okay, good work, Pam. Lots of digging, and pass it on to Amy, please, for all the digging she's done to explain all of this to us. But I'm happy to move the recommendation.
Thank you. Councillor Merton, go ahead.
Through your worship, I notice on page 11 that it indicates that municipalities will have to increase staff complement and associated resources to expedite approvals. Again, a bit of a disconnect, and I'm wondering in this report if we can make some comment about the impact at a time when potentially we're going to be asked to find savings to expedite a process for homes. The taxpayer may face some challenges because of the increase in staffing to make this process move forward. And I have a concern about the mixed messaging. We're going to build more homes, but there's going to be a cost associated potentially to move this process through, and also a process review from staffing on how does the process work and can it be expedited as well, based on the systems that you currently have in place. My concern is the increased cost potentially.
Councillor Gregg?
I would echo that concern, but I think that in some ways, if there was costs that we are bearing down the road from developers, we have various development fees that we can probably increase or attempt to collect some of that back. There's some correspondence later on from Tom Rakis, Mayor of, starts with A, and it's escaping me right now, a couple of years ago, Aurora, yes, and he led a charge to restructure the OMB into the LPATs. I know there was some discussion at the county on that subject. I totally agree with the comment by Amy that it's the county's recommendation that the LPAT needs more time to operate to discover need for any revisions. I would be very reluctant to support anything that removed local decision-making from the local decision makers, and it was just last week that our neighbors in Saugeen Shores had an item in front of them in Southampton, and I thought that's a great example where the local municipality retains the decision making. It's the way it should be. So I had concerns with maybe some reverting back to the OMB. In some ways I call this Bill 108 the 905 area code bill, because it's really skewed to the developers, I think, in the 905. Another question for our director is regarding parking. So I've had people come to me in Owen Sound, and they're definitely proponents of the secondary suites, and they have lots that are big enough and can accommodate the individuals, the residents, and the parking. But if this is this could perhaps be a bill made in Toronto, made for Brampton, and they don't get the 1.5 feet of snow every day for 4 months or 5 months, or are constructed in the narrower streets that Owen Sound is. So do you see any concerns from like we always deal with parking ongoing, and is there concerns with parking that might be a little bit more individualized to Owen Sound than the broadness of this bill?
Through your worship, maybe about a year ago, there was a draft OREG with respect to secondary suites, and at that time, Ms. Potter had done an excellent report that sort of outlined some thoughts in terms of a local context, and certainly parking was part of that, where in a denser community, you may always take the subway or public transit, and the need for parking for a secondary suite wouldn't be as important as it is in this context. So we had sent comments to the province. So coming out of these changes, I think there would be a next layer of OREG changes, and hopefully we would be able to provide more detailed comments at that time.
Thank you. Okay, anyone else? Call the question then. Councillor Kepke moved this. All in favor? That is carried. We're down to 12G, purchasing report. Mr. Ritchie.
Through your worship, our staff is requesting council award the purchase of his new snow plow that's including this year's budget to a low bidder, Lewis Motor Sales Incorporation. While the purchase price is somewhat higher than what's been included in the budget, we fully expect the price differential to be made up through the auctioning off of this piece of equipment.
Thank you. Councillor Gregg.
And I'd move the recommendation there in the purchase. I'd note, actually, it might be the same price as about 3 months ago when we purchased the last one. I guess the only positive in a way is there was 2 other bidders this time, and last time I think there's only a single bidder even on it. So, but just that noted, I'd move the recommendation.
All in favor? That's carried. Now to you, Deputy Mayor O'Leary, Grey County Council report.
Thank you, Worship. There's been a lot of discussion regarding the provincial budget and the impact on funding for Grey County. Council has asked for an ad hoc committee to be appointed to handle healthcare funding roles and responsibilities, and for that committee to bring back a recommendation to council regarding current requests for funding, including but not limited to Collingwood General Marine Hospital and Grey Bruce Health Services requests regarding the MRI and support physician recruiting. Council has asked staff to prepare a further report, including recommendations to address changes to funding and/or service delivery for consideration. Now, I did this report yesterday, so I had the budget cuts for child care services, housing, and paramedic services added up for 2019 and 20. And just like that, 1.4 million we lost this morning with that announcement, so that was good. But the totals for 2020 are 2,969,000 for cuts that are projected for 2020, which is scary. Grey County Housing Report. Grey County helped over 1,100 households retain housing through homelessness prevention supports. They created 34 affordable and market housing units and planning for 22 more units in 2019. They assisted an average 74 households monthly with a rental supplement to make their housing more affordable. They supported an average 70 residents monthly through housing with related supports. They're maintaining 997 units of rent-geared to income housing. They provided over 1,600 nights of emergency housing to over 400 households and provided funding to 12 community partners to provide homelessness prevention programs and services. Just to add to that, I attended the Healthy Communities Breakfast meeting on Friday morning where we discussed mental health and addictions. And at that meeting, they were using words like, we have a housing crisis and we need the county to partner with developers. So housing is becoming more and more of an issue. The closure of Simcoe Road 91 to allow for the Walker Quarry expansion is becoming more of a public issue. Grey County is not directly involved, but Council has asked Clearview to complete an appropriate Level C environmental assessment for the reconstruction of Side Road 26 and 27, and that their expansion application be put on hold until the assessment is complete. The Walker expansion was originally tabled in October of 2008, and the only traffic data that they had back then is now 15 years old. Traffic has increased 56% since the last traffic study. The closing of Simcoe Road 91 would cause a significant problem for commercial trucking, as the alternate route is so bad that you wouldn't want to meet another vehicle. Also mentioned in the discussions were ambulance response times. Using the alternate route, that would add 5.4 minutes each way for an ambulance, which is also significant. That's my report. Thank you.
Any questions for Deputy Mayor O'Leary? Seeing none, thank you. Consent agenda.
Through you, Your Worship, on the consent agenda this evening are two reports respecting facility use agreements, one for the Sarasota Circus being held at the Bayshore, and one for the Grey Bruce Ride Don't Hide event at Kelso Park. There are minutes for receipt from the Owen Sound Housing Company, the Owen Sound Municipal Nonprofit Housing Corporation, and the Police Board. Business licenses were issued to the Admiral's Barbershop at 268th Street East and Fat Boy Fireworks located in the parking lot at Heritage Place Mall. Lastly, there is correspondence presented for the information of council. A full listing is available at 13H.
Councillor Dodd.
Thank you, Your Worship. Moved by myself that City Council receives items 13A to 13H on the consent agenda dated May 27, 2019, and further that the recommendations contained in reports 13A to 13B be approved.
Call the question. All in favor? That is carried. We can go back up to minutes of Owen Sound Housing Company and Nonprofit Housing Corporation. Anything to report?
Yes. Through Your Worship, just information that we are currently moving forward to replace one member of our committee. One has resigned, so we're seeking membership for the board. And in addition, as we finish our phase 3, we are now looking ahead for options and opportunities to expand and consider phase 2. So we hope to have additional information in the future, and we'll be discussing this further at our board meetings. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Owen Sound Police Services Board.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just a few highlights from the meeting. Of the 31 collisions reported, the most prevalent causes were failing to yield the right-of-way and reversing from a parking position. So a lot of accidents were happening in parking lots. 22 ride checks took place in March, and 2 of those resulted in impaired driving charges. Auxiliary officers provided 263.5 hours for the month of March, assisting with the health fair, alumni hockey game, polar plunge, and completion of their use of force recertification. Criminal Investigations Branch conducted investigations relating to sexual assault, child abuse, sudden deaths, thefts, wanted persons, and drug offenses. In the Drug Enforcement Division, the focus continues to be on fentanyl and methamphetamines. 6 taxi licenses were issued and 3 adult entertainment licenses were issued. 1,542 bulk record checks were conducted, and there was a staff report regarding accessible taxi cabs, and the Owen Sound Police Services Board has asked for a further report regarding options available for funding accessible vehicles for taxi services.
Good, thank you. We're down to number 14 on the agenda, and we have minutes from Community Services Committee. Chair Leary.
Thank you, Your Worship. Further to Council's request for staff to provide a report on cancelled ice with minor sports groups, we had 3 representatives from the Owen Sound Minor Hockey Group. There was opportunities to ask questions and make comments, and in the end, committee received the report, and for the next year, a form will be developed to assist in tracking cancelled ice. There were 3 facade and structural improvement program applications, the first being from Sweet Pea, located at 833 2nd Avenue East. The proposal on the front facade is to remove the existing backlit fascia sign and replace it with a new non-backlit fascia sign made of metal and install a new projecting sign with the wrought iron hanging sign on the south end of the front facade, also made of metal. The proposed work will enhance the architectural appearance of the facade. The second application was a request for extension for 925 2nd Avenue West. The owner would like to delay completion of the masonry repairs due to the city works to upgrade the water main along 2nd Avenue West. The owner has been working to complete the other portions of her facade improvement application. Staff have recommended an extension to November 30th to allow a 1-month grace period. The third facade application was also a request for extension for 890 4th Avenue East. More time during fair weather months is required to complete the repointing work and the installation of signage lighting. The owner has been working to complete the other portions of the facade application. Brent Fisher presented a report outlining a request from Owen Sound Men's Rec Hockey to place storage cabinets at the east and west pads of the Julie MacArthur Recreation Center. These storage cabinets match the current storage cabinets at the rec center that belong to the Owen Sound Minor Hockey Group. Committee dealt with a request from Community Waterfront Heritage Center regarding public Wi-Fi. The CWHC has advised that there are activities happening in the late evenings and early mornings with people utilizing the Wi-Fi. Committee approved shutting the Wi-Fi down from 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. That would accommodate people enjoying the waterfront and fishermen as well. Director of Community Services reported that city staff received notification from the federal government on May 2nd, 2019, that the city's application under the Federal Enabling Accessibility Grant Small Size Project was reconsidered and now recommended for funding. The city will receive $97,175 in funding for this project. The Harrison Park Community Center Accessibility Project will provide accessible parking, remove the physical barriers of the stairway, and improve the accessibility to the kitchen. It will include automatic door openers and the development of a fully accessible washroom. The project budget is $149,500, with $97,125 from the grant and $52,325 from the city's capital budget. The work must be completed by May 12th, 2020. This will require a budget amendment of $52,325. This was previously approved by council, and when the grant was refused, the money was put into reserves. I'd like to thank staff for their hard work to make this happen. This will be a huge improvement to the Harrison Park Community Center. Director of Community Services presented a report regarding a request to add sitting stones to the Wildesendeweg Walking Together tour sites on city lands, as well as within the right-of-way in front of the 6th Avenue East burial site. They're also asking to add a small round garden at the base of each plaque. The stones would provide an area for the people to sit and read the online information or listen to the audio while looking at the sculptures. And with that, Your Worship, I move approval of those minutes.
Thank you. And I understand we need 2/3 majority on the part with the budget where we're taking money out of reserve, putting it back in, because it's a budget change. So I'm going to, any questions first? Go ahead.
Thanks, Mayor Bai. I do, and I completely agree. It's going to be a wonderful improvement to the senior center. There's just, and Councillor Dodd, you moved the recommendation on the hockey. There's been a ton of staff time, it seems to me, on the outside, looking at prepping that report. There was a report prepped in March before minor hockey was even done using the ice for the end of March. Anybody's really familiar with minor hockey, there's different tiers. There's rep hockey, which primarily is going by the start of September, and many teams are out of their playoffs by the start of March. House League doesn't even get going until October, and they go later. What's our goal here with, I guess where it comes from is earlier tonight we had the fees and charges, and we have increases in soccer fields and ball fields and hockey rates or ice rates, and I wonder, you know, do we get a look at, as we continue to escalate the rate for, or the fee being charged, what's the bookings like? Are we seeing a corresponding drop in the booking rate? So we have a lot of time, to me, spent on that report, and I'm not sure where it's going or what we're trying to achieve from it, because we're, like most municipalities, every municipality loses money on the hockey, on the rink. But I don't think we're probably going to decide to close it. And also even just the issue with, personally, I think staff should have that ability to decide on turning the why we have a report came forward on turning the Wi-Fi off overnight. I just think there's other reports I would have personally liked to have seen, and that fees and charges is just an example of one, but that's me.
Ms. Coulter, do you want to answer? I think there was a question in there. Maybe two of them.
Perhaps take this one, Your Worship. Ms. Coulter's certainly been involved in much of this as well, but on our two rec facilities, the net cost to operate those to the ratepayer is over $700,000. So what staff are trying to achieve through this is an understanding that in order to bring those costs down, we need the ability to lease those facilities, the ice pads, as efficiently and effective as we can for all ratepayers. That may mean on occasion some ratepayers who want to have ice at a certain time on a certain night in a certain way, it will not be available for the most efficient, effective renting of all the ice. Staff, trust me, I have watched this unfold over the last several years, do their absolute best to accommodate all the needs of our users. But unfortunately, it just cannot be done 100% of the time. And this is making council and the committee aware that within the goal of trying to maintain a reasonable cost of providing a very valuable service to our community, there needs to be some give and take on all sides, and staff, I can tell you, I am confident of one thing, staff have gone beyond their means to try to work with all the people. That's all we're trying to accomplish with this. Nothing more. I absolutely agree. We have put a whole lot of staff time into this. I hope it's paid off.
Good. Anyone else? Go ahead, Councillor Kepke.
Just to clarify the motion on the Harrison Park issue, it's a Harrison Park Community Center, not the Senior Center. Okay, thanks.
Good point. I'm going to call the question. All in favor? That is carried. Minutes from Operations Committee. Councillor Gregg.
Thank you, Mayor Bai. Let's see, we'll start. We had a deputation from the Owen Sound Waste Watchers, which was follow-up, reviewing their cleanup done in Owen Sound in April. The organization conveyed the impact of cleaning up the environment to the committee, and more so the increasing focus that we're seeing everywhere, which I hope we're seeing everywhere, on the reduced pillar in terms of the reduce, reuse, and recycle. It's becoming much more apparent to everyone that we're just consuming resources at an unsustainable rate. So they're looking forward to a future report. We are already familiar. We've got a enthusiastic, terrific new employee with the city named Cassandra working on a report on single-use plastics by the municipality, and they'll be looking forward to that report coming forward in the future, as are all of us. We had a letter from 11th Street West residents who have experienced increased retention of water and subsequent damage to their property. The development on 10th Street is yet to fulfill conditions of their site plan, which is contributing and exacerbating the issue on the private property and the city road allowance in between. Staff are aware of the issue, and direction was provided to enforce the owner to adhere to the site plan conditions. We had the March and April airport reports. Poor weather impacted the airport as there were many no-fly days, and subsequently fuel sales are down. The Wings and Wheels will not be occurring this year due to not enough volunteers. And I should mention that is somewhat mentioned earlier, flights from the area, but there's updated charter information now available on the flyos.ca website, which is Owen Sound Flight Services for charter pricing. And I might say this is a great travel option, whether someone's flying down to Toronto Island or maybe as a gift for the hard to buy for, such as a flight to Killarney for world famous fish and chips. Committee is also asking council to support a smoking ban at the compost facility. Signage would be installed to inform users of the bylaw and fee. We acknowledge that it is generally unmanned at the site. However, we have had instances precipitating fire calls to resolve smoldering materials up there. And we received for information the annual audit of the Drinking Water Quality Management Standard. This was the first audit against the updated 2018 standard. We had only one non-conformance, which was identifying GenWorks as a service provider, and that was corrected and accepted in March of this year. So that actually that non-conformance would have been against the old standard or the new standards. And finally, we had a long, lengthy look at the proposed detour for the 10th Street Bridge. And I should mention to start, just as a refresher for council, but the resurfacing projects in front of us this year are very much aligned with the detour route. So those resurfacing projects that we've budgeted for this year, and this is approximately $650,000 worth of resurfacing in total, is 9th Street from the 2nd Avenue East to 3rd Avenue East, 8th Street Bridge to 2nd Avenue East, 3rd Avenue East from 8th Street to 9th Street, 10th Street West from 4th Avenue West to 7th Avenue West, and 16th Street East from 12th Avenue East to 18th Avenue East. So acknowledging that those roads are going to be resurfaced this year, or are planned to be, the proposed detour did not consider bypass road for rerouting of traffic. It was considered, but one-way pairing was eliminated as it would add further educating and conditioning the motorists to those one-ways. And detouring using 2nd Avenue East, which is the downtown street, was eliminated due to concerns of over-congestion. The proposed detour at this time is to be 2 lanes westbound, 1 lane eastbound on 9th Street, 2 lanes eastbound, 1 lane westbound on 8th Street. Get to this by, I guess, why is it eastbound on one, westbound on the other? This is achieved by just somewhat extending the direction of travel. So you've got your right lane, and it's maintaining the outside perimeter of the detour route going around the downtown. By doing that, it avoids additional backlog of turning the traffic against each other at some point. So we also then will have a 3-lane cross-section in the 900 block of 2nd Avenue West, a 4-lane cross-section in the 900 block of 3rd Avenue East. It will establish double turn lanes at 10th at 10th Street and 3rd Avenue East, 9th and 3rd Avenue East, 9th and 2nd Avenue West before completing the reroute for westbound traffic. And there'll be a double turn left at 8th Street and 2nd Avenue West for eastbound traffic. There will be a parking impact, which at this time we're looking at the removal occurring on 3rd Avenue West, 800 and 900 blocks. The removal on between 2nd and 3rd Avenue West on 8th and 9th Street in front of, in front of the law offices on 9th Street East in the 100 block. And removal of south side parking on 8th Street in the 100 and 200 blocks. Removal of north side parking on 9th Street East in the 100 and 200 blocks. Removal of east side parking on 3rd Avenue East in the 800 block and both sides in the 900 block. It does propose to add 21 spaces on 10th Street in the 200 block. The current usage on downtown parking is 35% on street stalls. It's approximately 30% in the municipal lots. This will reduce the total stalls by 64, or 8% in total of what's available. We do still have a transit impact to be fully completed, but at this time we're looking at a potential 1-hour service on the Brook route and the 2 east side routes maintaining the same schedules and a go between the east side and west side. I guess at this time I'll ask for approval. I might mention a couple other considerations on the detour to extend the communication of our plan to, and it still has to go to the DIA next month and it'll come back as a formal report going forward. But the Chamber of Commerce, DIA partners, and we know the DIA is going to have it presented. We're also maybe able to extend in communicating to these partners, perhaps changing or shuffling their work hours for employees might be something that they might consider. Cycling to work, get people out of the car, get them walking, get them cycling, which is a more environmentally friendlier, it's a healthier approach, it enhances productivity, and it's easy to park. So those are just a couple other options moving forward, because we know it's going to be a significant impact. No matter what we do, it's a big job. I've had one person speak to me about large truck traffic, for instance, and we'll have to deal with that in due time. So with that, Your Worship, I would move approval of those minutes.
Okay, thank you. I think Councillor Thomas had a question.
Was there any discussion about a roundabout? Seems to be about the only thing that's missing in that plan, from my perspective. A lot of work went into that, and I want to commend staff. That is good work. Or maybe east-west charter flights, you know, that there's potential there.
How long was your holiday? Go ahead.
Thanks. I think I thought I was the only one being confused listening to your explanation there, but I took a peek at the Director of Public Works there, and even he was confused, and he did the report. So I know it's really hard when you're trying to explain this. So I guess the question is this on the website where people can actually look at the plan? It really is hard to explain.
Through Your Worship, it's not currently on the website, but it will be once we go through the more formal process of presenting to DIA and then coming back with the formal report to operations.
Okay, and is there any public meeting or anything, or will there be a chance for people to come and look at how this is all going to work? I just think it might be necessary, but it's just a suggestion.
We haven't scheduled a public meeting, but that's something that we can definitely do closer to, well, later in the summer, say several months before the actual detour does occur.
I think it is going to be fun watching people on Owen Sound with 2 lanes turning left together side by side. It's never been done. It should be fun.
Councillor, yeah. Well, it's going to be very fun in Owen Sound. I'm glad you've got a sense of humor. Councillor Kepke.
My comments were the same sort of sentiments, that all of your discussion is very confusing, and I certainly am looking forward to the visuals of all of this. Saw them at operations and appreciated the visuals, but I do want people at home to know that this is only receipt of this presentation. It's not approval of the plan yet. It has to go through the DIA, and if there is a public presentation, it'll be for information. And I look forward to Dennis's report when he does bring it to council with the visuals.
If I could, Your Worship, certainly before we get too far along with saying this is the final plan, we are taking the DIA, looking for input. They may, even though we've had consultants who are very good at what they do, along with Dennis's staff, look at this, they may have a suggestion and we go, aha. So before we get too far along the public promotion of it, we are still open to, I'll say, some massages. I've looked at it and I absolutely agree. It's tough to grab all in one sit down, but when you look at it a number of times, I think it's the best we can do. But we are using the downtown river precinct as a model for how we're going to move ahead with our next large construction program, quite frankly, being the 10th Street Bridge. Staff are meeting every Friday morning to go over the week, what's worked, what hasn't worked. I can tell you a key part of what is working is the communication we're putting into that. And trust me, that will be a big part of what we do with the 10th Street Bridge so that people understand what we're trying to accomplish, what we're doing throughout the process, and hopefully over 14 months we'll find it as convenient as possible. So we're learning as we go, but absolutely Dennis will do a thorough job of explaining this to the public.
Okay. Councillor Tammy?
I have a non-road related question for Mr. Grigg, possibly for staff. Are we done with the roads?
Go ahead.
All right. The plastics. It's been in the news that China is turning back most plastic, and I just wonder, as an impetus for this possibility of having one-use plastic, I'm wondering if we could know this statistic for the next meeting, if we could. What is the percentage of the recycled plastic in Owen Sound that is now being landfilled, if any? My understanding is across the world, people are starting to landfill this stuff. I don't expect staff to have that now, but I'd like a report back.
If it's possible to get that number, Cassandra will certainly have that number for us. So,
Good. I was going to ask Councillor Grigg that I lost the second one and the third one, if you can maybe start over. I'm going to call the question. All in favor? That's carried. B&B, busing and biking, I think, is going to be the theme. Next, we have a closed minutes from Tom Thompson Art Gallery. Councillor Tam, you chaired that. There's nothing to present, but if you want to move them, then we can vote on them.
I move them.
Yeah, so he's moving those minutes for approval. All in favor? Carried. We have no postponed matters. There are no motions for which notice was previously given. Discussion of additional business. Councillor Kepke.
Thank you, Your Worship. I just want to advise everyone the Seniors Fair is coming up on June the 5th, and it'll be from 10 till 3 at the Bayshore. And the Community Waterfront Heritage Center are conducting a few different activities this year. One being a bus tour to also tour the ship, the SS Keewatin, as well as St. Marie among the Hurons. It's taking place on Saturday, June 22nd. People can purchase tickets at the Waterfront Center. And a new exhibit at the Waterfront Center called Pack Your Bags, where they'll be celebrating the steam-powered and various inspiring stories from immigrants to Canada and the Great Lakes tourists that vacation by steamer and rail. Next, I wanted to speak about the police conference I attended, and there were several great speakers. I took copious notes, but I won't go through them. One that I want to highlight is the Community Safety and Policing Act. There was people from the Solicitor General's office, the ministry, outlining that act and all the changes to that act for us, as well as we had a session on the community safety and well-being planning from Halton Region, and they have developed their plan. Municipalities are mandated to develop a plan by 2021, and we need to get the ball rolling on this, but we do have a few examples out there of people that already have started this plan, so I will be later proposing a notice of motion on that topic. And I think that was all I had. Thank you.
Good, thank you. Deputy Mayor O'Leary.
Thank you, Your Worship. Ian Reich spoke to the Board of Health on Friday morning about what the Health Unit is doing about opioids. Common goals and vision, the Health Unit has partnered with Grey and Bruce counties and have initiated a rapid alert system. The Health Unit is notified every time there is an opioid situation. So if there is a spike in overdoses, the Health Unit can send out alerts. The Health Unit is planning fall opioid awareness public engagement sessions. Ian talked about how the drug causes a medical dependence. 35% of people addicted began with a prescription. From 2014 to present, there has been a spike in overdoses, and there was 11 deaths last year. The average age in the deaths were 45 to 55, and the overwhelming majority lived in permanent homes. There was one opioid death that was homeless. So I just, anytime those kind of stats and information comes out, I just thought I'd share that with council, and it's not very much, but it's a little bit.
Thank you. Councillor Gregg.
Thank you, Mayor Body. I was, I had on Friday night with Mayor Body attended the opening night of Conduct Unbecoming, Murder and Mayhem at the Billy Bishop Museum, and I was just a spectator until he told me that you're presenting this on Monday then, right? I just paid more attention at that point forward. But a great job done curating the exhibit by OSDSS students Caleb Keeling, Adrian Wagner, and Sydney Thornton. This exhibition commemorates the 75th anniversary of D-Day, which is upcoming June the 6th. It highlighted Francis Brown and Ernest Gilbank, who were local soldiers caught by the German SS on June 6th and murdered as POWs. And also murdered was Walter Brown, who had been identified as a military chaplain. And he was serving at the time with locals Greenwood and Granger of the area here. So that's the local component to the third individual highlighted in the exhibit. It's really a great time to visit Billy Bishop Museum right now. Also showing currently is an exhibit on the Polish Regiment and the contribution, as well as the 100-day offensive, I think, is showing right now as well. So any day is a great day to recall the sacrifices that were laid down for us, and the Billy Bishop Museum is a very good reminder of that. So I encourage everyone in the community to take some time and go check out the excellent work by the students, and congratulations to the board and Emily for the work on in the presentation going forward right now.
Good, thanks. Councillor Gregg, that Adrian Wagner is one of those, he's a leader of the Air Cadets, you know, that group that I'm constantly bragging about. Great group of kids, and there he is. I also want to back you on that. Curator Emily Joliffe has really brought that place to life, and there's lots of exhibits there that are worth seeing. She's doing a great job. Thank you. On behalf of council, we want to congratulate our Director of Corporate Services, Kate Allen, and Zach for the birth of their daughter, Matilda, last Tuesday, the third child of their family. Congratulations. Mr. Ritchie and I toured on Friday with Warden Hicks, took him through the city, showed him different things that are going on, some of our issues, some of our opportunities, rec center, some of the development area, gave him some ideas of things we'd like to see happen at the county as far as sharing services amongst the county. Saturday night, I went to the Shoreline Chorus celebrating their 20th anniversary. Anne-Marie McDermott has been the director there for all 20 years. They started off with 11 chorus singers, and now they have over 60. They've toured 6 different countries in that time. They've got approximately 85 to 100 alumni that weren't there or weren't singing that night. 2-hour concert, the sound in a church. Churches are made for choirs, and this choir was pretty amazing. So congratulations to them on their 20 years, and we hope they have 20 years more. Very briefly, congratulations to Suzuki, Phillips, Dursey, and Roberts, who are, of course, ATTAC alumni, for winning the Robertson Cup with Guelph Storm and making it to the semifinals of the Memorial Cup. Also, congratulations to Craig Bennington playing tonight in the Stanley Cup final with St. Louis Blues. And congratulations to the Raptors, though amazingly they don't have any ATTAC alumni on them for some reason yet. Good. So, motion the committee rise.
Move by myself that the Committee of the Whole rise and report.
All in favor? That's carried. So into formal sessions, motions to adopt proceedings in Committee of the Whole.
Moved by myself, seconded by Deputy Mayor O'Leary, that the action taken in the Committee of the Whole in considering public meetings, deputations, and presentations, public question period, matters arising from correspondence, reports of city staff, consent agenda, committee minutes, matters postponed, motions for which notice was previously given, and additional business be confirmed by this council.
All in favor? That is carried. Notices of motion.
Thank you, Your Worship. As I mentioned earlier, municipalities have been legislated to develop a community safety and well-being plan by 2021, and several agencies need to be involved around that situation table. Municipalities need to be each developing a plan. However, they can co-develop plans. So I'm proposing a notice of motion that I'll read out, but it's to ask Grey County to initiate discussions on development of a plan, mainly because each community has to meet with their police, fire, emergency services, health, mental health, aging, youth, ministerial, VON, OPP, addictions, social services, municipal leaders, so on. So rather than each municipality meeting with those same people, it makes more sense for the county to take the initiative, develop one plan, and each municipality will have input into that plan. So my notice of motion is that I hereby give notice that I will move or cause to be moved a motion at the next regular council meeting to request Grey County Council to consider initiating discussions to develop a community safety and well-being plan for its member municipalities that has been legislated to be in place by 2021.
Good, thank you. Bylaws.
Through your worship, the bylaws listed for approval on tonight's agenda include the confirmatory bylaw, a bylaw to execute a site plan agreement with Grey Bruce Property Rentals for property at 1185 4th Ave East, a bylaw to execute a facade structural improvements agreement for property at 883 2nd Ave East, a bylaw to adopt a policy respecting taxes, a bylaw to execute a site plan agreement for property at 1832 7th Ave East, a bylaw to execute a grant agreement with the Minister of Employment and Social Development respecting the Harrison Park Community Center Accessibility Project, 2 bylaws to execute facility use agreements, one with Sarasota Producing Company for use of the J.D. MacArthur Arena, and one with Keystone Child, Youth and Family Services for use of Kelso Beach Park. And lastly, a bylaw to amend the fees and charges bylaw and the parking permits and street parking rental policy respecting daily parking passes.
Great, thank you. Go ahead.
Thank you, Your Worship. Moved by myself, second by Deputy Mayor O'Leary. There, it just took like 6 times to finally spit that one out.
You mean Deputy Mayor Wright?
That bylaw number is 2019-083 through to 2019-091 be passed and enacted.
All in favor? That is carried. That completes our business for tonight. It is now 30. Let me start over. It is now 9:35. Thanks, everybody.